Are you guys all set?
Yep.
Okay, stand by. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 20th meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board. We are meeting tonight in the town municipal offices at Greenwood. I apologize if anyone is at the school, and we'll get you next time. I will read my announcement. Select Board Chair Josh Levine. I will be confirming that all members and persons anticipated in the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Dan Zwerko.
Here.
Beneath Hamabathy.
Here.
Andrew Lamb.
Here.
Shelley Maynard DeWolf.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lynn Simmons.
Here.
Mike Barbieri.
Here.
Peggy Sheldon.
Here.
This open meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board is convened in person and via Zoom webinar as posted on the agenda and town's website identifying how the public may join. There is no chat or Q&A function. All of the materials for this meeting are available on the agenda posted on longmeadowma.gov. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. This meeting will feature resident comment. For residents attending the meeting in person, please raise your hand when we get to the comments section of the meeting, and I will call on you to approach the microphone. For residents participating in the meeting via Zoom webinar format, please use the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen. The meeting moderator will promote you to panelist, unmute you, and give you permission to speak. If you join the webinar by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute, unmute. Residents who wish to speak will identify their names and addresses only. Each individual is afforded 3 minutes for comments. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. If anyone in attendance is recording this meeting, please announce yourself now.
Sarah Heenan in Reminder Publishing.
Thank you, Sarah. Now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no announcements today, is that right, Mike?
No, just a reminder that the community preservation applications are due November 13th for funding at the annual town meeting.
All right, thank you, Mike. Move on to resident comments.
Good.
Tom Shea, 81 Green Meadow Drive. Article 4, $1 million revolving fund. The article is written, I believe, was rejected by the Select Board on October 6th. This is taxpayer money and taxpayer approved. Funding for capital projects is done at each May and November town meeting. My revised proposal based on your previous comments is $250,000 deposited into a revolver for unexpected operating and capital items. The Select Board should control the account. You may need a bylaw change. $750 deposited into the Capital Stabilization Fund to be appropriated at town meetings by a 2/3 vote. Capital items, 6 months forward, should be able to be forecasted. It should be a goal to replenish the revolver. So in November, you'll have $400 from last May, the interest on stabilization, another $400 this May, interest on stabilization, $750,000. You'll have $1.5 million to spend in May, or as you see fit. My proposal is reasonable since it gives the Select Board access to emergency funds and also provides the citizens to approve capital items. Article 9 and 10, Western Drive, $11 million. Water and sewer charges should not be used for road replacement portion of these two agendas. It is against Select Board policy. Look at your handout. It says that allowed use of funds, upon appropriation at town meeting, money used for operating, repairs, and maintenance of the potable and firefighting water distribution. Number 3, bonds and indebtedness for maintenance repair of water distribution systems. It mentions road reconstruction, nowhere. I was surprised there was no previous discussion of your policy. It makes no sense to use water and sewer funds for roads. There's no nexus or correlation. What's next? A cover charge at the adult center for roads. Using water and sewer revenues for road reconstruction has never been done in Long Meadow. Emerson Road is currently being paved with general funds for the road, water and sewer funds paid for the sewer. At 2 meetings this year, the DPW head said the Western Drive has needed to be done for a while. We were waiting to do water and sewer. Conclusion, appropriate the bonds for water and sewer portion and come back for the road reconstruction in May, or bring it all back in May. I was gonna mention water and sewer rates going up 43%, even though it was 8% in the town budget. We'll do that another time. Just remember, water and sewer rates are based on appropriations, not just setting rates. Appropriations are done at town meeting by the citizens. The select board sets water and sewer rates. One last thing.
You're out of time, Tom.
I'm out of time? Hope for another minute for it was a joint session, but thank you.
Yes, introduce
I'm
yourself. Name and address, please.
I'm Stefan Platzer. I live on 100 Hilltop Road, highest place in Long Meadow, so if it ever floods, I will be the last person to go. I've been living in Long Meadow since the age of 7. I went to the center school, I went to Williams School and so forth. And it's been wonderful living in this town. And what I'm doing is organizing this calendar. We've been putting this together for the last 7 years. The idea is different photographers, local photographers, have to take a beautiful picture in Long Meadow, and we want to promote it. Big Y is selling them. I will be giving a talk next door on the 13th of November, and also on the 3rd of November, I'll be giving a talk at the store's library. I just want people to realize, you know, this is a high school. Education is extremely important in this town. There's a lot of nature photography, birds, little baby chasing a mother. And I'm sure everybody knows about this house. There's skeletons climbing up the side of the house. So again, there's lots of great photographs. We want to record what this town looks like now. And we give this calendar to the Historical Society. In 100 years, we'll be famous. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mike, anybody online?
Hey, do you see anyone online with their hands raised? Oh, I think she'll be on later for the, interview.
Okay. Okay, seeing nothing further, we will move on to board and committee interviews. Sorry. Oh, am I out of order?
Yeah.
How did I miss that? Oh, sorry.
Josh, it's okay,
Am I looking at an old one?
if you wanna do the interviews before the joint meeting, there's only 3 of them, they're all for the same, commission. It's up to you if you wanna do it
Oh,
that way.
wait, I am looking at an old one. Sorry, I was looking at our last meeting agenda. Yeah, I'm sorry. Erica, would you like to please open up your, I went out of order. I apologize. If you would like to open up your meeting for our joint meeting with the Finance Committee?
Yes, so I'd like to convene the joint meeting of the Finance Committee and the Select Board to review the warrants. Do we all need to say our names?
You can open your meeting as you see fit.
Okay, so the people in the room are here, and online we have Kara Stevens, so we are all in attendance.
All right, thank you for joining us. I apologize for skipping over you. So why don't we go ahead, and we are looking at the November 4th, 2025 special fall town meeting warrant. Lynn, if you'd like to take it away.
Yes, thank you. So this afternoon, you should have all received an email from me with the latest draft of the warrant. I believe it was getting uploaded to the agenda later today. So if you look at the one that was sent via email, that is the most current version. So there's been quite a reordering of it since the first draft, which won't mean much to the finance committee, because this, I think, is your first time seeing it, so the different order should not make a difference to you. But for select board, it is vastly different from the last meeting. So starting with Article 1, are you able to put that up? Okay, there it is. Thanks. So the first is a pretty standard one. It's prior year bills. We have two this year. One is to close out a project for our payroll update, and then the other is a copier expense that for some reason came in after the close of the books. So that's our first one. Happy to take any questions on that one. Okay. Article 2 is related to accepting of Mass General Law, Chapter 40U, and a subsequent bylaw change to allow us to gradually increase fines for unshoveled sidewalks. This is something that came up when we did our code book review. At the time, the general law we had accepted was $10. We've now learned that there is another general law that we can accept that allows us to go much higher than $10, and that's what we're proposing here. $10, as you can imagine, does not really incentivize people to comply with shoveling the sidewalk. So code enforcement flagged this as an area that they wanted to see us address, and they've recommended gradual fines from $50 for the first offense, $125 the second, and $200 for the third. So this would accept that general law and then make the bylaw change.
The offenses, is it, if it's not cleaned up, say we have ice for 3 days, if it's not cleaned up, the second day, is that a second offense, or is it per storm?
I believe it's every 24 hours,
Okay.
but,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Every 24 hours.
thank you. Okay, any,
Will there be like education first before we go through a fine, just because
Yeah.
it's such a steep increase, obviously?
they always do that, yeah. They, really, ultimately, we just want the sidewalk shoveled, so we keep, not that we don't care about the fine, but that's not the goal with this. It's that people actually shovel it. Okay. Article 3 is a floodplain bylaw change. This has come forward at was it the annual town meeting we had this at?
Yes.
I think. And it was not successful. We regrouped, and the conservation agent and our associate planner did a considerable amount of public engagement, including notifying each household within the floodplain about this bylaw change, and held a forum to just educate people on it. This will bring us into compliance with state law, so it's critical that we get this passed. I don't know if you have anything more to add on this, Mike?
No, what you said was perfect, and there's going to be a public information session on the 22nd, so this Wednesday, with some of the direct abutters to people who live in the floodplain zone, as well as the general public, just to get the intent of the bylaw across to people, so that they understand, and they have a chance to ask any questions that they may have. The planning board did vote to recommend it at their public hearing last week, 2 weeks ago.
Is there going to be an explanation, like a layman's terms explanation after this article? Because the general public is not going to have any idea what it's about.
I have to add it right now, actually. I'm
Okay,
working on it.
There will be. Thanks.
The forum that was held, how many people attended that?
Sorry, I misspoke. It hasn't been held yet. I'm a little off because I was out for a couple days. It's scheduled for Wednesday.
Okay.
They did the notification to all the residents in the floodplain district last week.
Okay.
Yes, and there was a public hearing on the 7th. No members of the public attended that.
Article 4 relates to a new revolving fund. So I went into a lot of detail about this at the last meeting, but Finance Committee was not there, so some of this will be repetitive for the Select Board, but I do think the background is important for the Finance Committee. As you know, we have net metering agreements, and over the years, we have amassed quite a large credit balance on our electricity account for streetlights. That was due to the town purchasing the streetlights and then converting them from high-pressure sodium to LED. Thus, we were using a lot less electricity. And so the solar credits we were buying have been accumulating. We haven't been able to use them all. And so we've been back and forth with both Eversource, but also Nugent, who is the holder of one of our net metering agreements. We had to do quite a few amendments, one of which is with Nugent, where we have now cashed out our solar credits, and instead of them accumulating on the streetlight account or any other electric account, they are now issuing a check to the town once a month. We take it into an agency account, we split the money as the agreement calls for with the town of Agawam, and Nugent gets their portion, and then the town keeps theirs. That has just been sitting in an account waiting for the rest of the solar credit piece of this conversation to finish, which is the large credit balance that we have with the streetlight account. We've been back and forth with Eversource for the last year. Where we stand right now is Eversource is willing to cut the town a check for around $880,000 to cash out that large balance of solar credits. We would just receive the money, and if we don't have an account set up for the money to go into, it will just go to the general fund. So before we give the green light to Eversource to have them send us that payment, we discussed setting up a revolving fund. There are many other examples of communities that have done this throughout the state. Working with town council, we have modified this language here that would create a DPW electricity and energy improvement revolving fund. At the last meeting, the select board wanted the revolving fund to be as broad as possible. We tried to do that, but unfortunately, we're not able to go as broad as the discussion wanted us to. And so what we have here is a revolving fund that would take the Eversource payment and the recurring solar credits from Nugent, that we buy from Nugent, and put these into a revolving fund that would be used to pay for all electricity accounts on the town side and any town or school capital improvements related to energy infrastructure. And the expenditure limit for FY26 we've set in this draft as $1 million. That's because between the $880,000 from Eversource and the recurring payments, we will hit that $1 million. In future years, we may adjust it, but that's something we do annually at town meeting.
Could I summarize a few things?
Go ahead, please.
Benefit. So, last meeting, we talked about this a lot, and it occurred to, I think, all of us that there's no reason why we would restrict this as much as possible. The original idea was, proposal was for it to be just for like clean energy projects. So we want to make it as broad as possible. If we do nothing, it will go, into our free cash, and then we can basically use it for anything, except the reason to consider a revolving fund was then there could be a more nimble use of it by the town manager, for example. You wouldn't have to go to like town meeting and wait, essentially. So the argument is, and I think it's definitely worth discussing, and I'm personally pretty ambivalent about it because there's benefits both ways. If you give it back to the town, then the town, it can be used for anything. But if you have a revolving fund, then there could be something like that comes up that's urgent, like a literacy thing or a pool repair that you could theoretically use it for. Although, unfortunately, now we've just learned that it's not going to be that broad. So I think that this kind of opens up the debate.
So one of the ways it could be viewed as broad is the DPW already budgets for all the town electricity accounts. By removing the DPW operating budget from paying for that, that frees up that money that's already in their budget.
Yeah, so that was gonna be my question. So you said it will pay for all electricity accounts.
Yep.
How much does that add up to?
It's about $370,000 a year, roughly.
So our net metering will, in theory, pay for all of the other electricity?
Yes,
Wow,
town side.
right. That's pretty good.
And then we would have, you know, a healthy amount left to tackle some energy projects, which could be chillers, could be mini splits, refrigeration issues, anything that draws energy.
Now, one of the things we talked about at our last meeting was that, it was police department.
Yep.
Air conditioner broke, and we could have, if we had a fund like this, we could have put in mini splits right away, rather than waiting.
So can I just ask a question again back to, we overpaid historically for electricity, or we pre-purchased electricity, and out of that, they're giving us back money or credits because we didn't use the amount of energy that we said we were going to use? Is that what this money is?
We purchased solar energy credits to a level that we could not realize on our electricity accounts. So, yes, but I wouldn't say, at the time the net metering agreements were set up, it was adequate. When we,
Okay, but that's fine. So,
Yeah.
so this is money that we spent in the past that we are now getting back because we didn't spend it. Is that a true statement?
yeah, well, it's sitting on, it's a credit balance on our electricity accounts right now.
Okay. And the Eversource, this is a one-time
Yes.
fix to the problem, so there's not an additional fund coming forward. And then we get a monthly payment from this other thing.
Yep.
But are we paying them and then they're giving us back part of that? I'm just trying to figure out where the money's coming from.
So we buy, through the net metering agreements, we buy the solar credits, instead of them sitting on our solar accounts, and some of this is way above me. So I'm gonna explain it to the best that I understand it. The solar credits go onto our electricity bill, but instead of applying those to the bill, it's getting cashed out. So Eversource is just sending us a check for what those credits are, the monthly credits. The agreement we have is until 2034, and then there's 2 5-year renewals after that. So this monthly payment can come until 2044.
Except somewhere or other, we're paying them the money and they're giving it back to
Yeah,
us.
we're buying them, and then they, at a lower rate, and they sell back to us. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, we buy them at a lower rate, and then Eversource converts it, and then we end up realizing more money in it.
Next question. Just one question is, so we have a big bolus of $1 million now. How much, so the idea of a revolving fund is that it will replenish itself. How much can we expect the recurring part of it to be?
It's gonna fluctuate. It's not always gonna be the same amount, but it's been about $70,000 a month.
So I guess I'm thinking, is it really worth going to the trouble of creating another account that everyone has to kind of keep track of for ultimately something that's only $70,000 a year when?
No, a month.
A month, I'm so sorry. Okay, that's much more, okay.
So we have 2 other revolving funds that are similar. One is for the adult center, and the other one is for the fire department, Parks, no, that's now to 53 and a half. Adult center, the signs. And those generate
Yeah, no, that's more than I thought. Yeah.
almost nothing. I mean, the adult center does decent, but the signs one is maybe $3,000.
And the adult center one is kind of come in, come out, right?
Yeah, that's what a revolving fund is. The money,
No, yeah.
fees or other revenue comes in and goes out for the intended use.
Right.
You can't just spend it on anything.
Yeah, so the language here is, town council said, because of the source of the funds, this is the language that you can use for where it goes?
Yeah, the experience that town council's had with the dozen other communities they've set this up for is that it has passed DOR muster because it is energy credits coming in and being used to pay energy bills.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask, was that if it had to be energy related. And then, in our last meeting, we were asking about how broad this could be, and you received guidance from town council about the kind of the parameters. So, can you give us a sense of what the parameters are here?
Yeah, I did express that the board was interested in more of a department-wide approach to the she was 100% certain that would never work.
We
She
wanted the money to go to the DPW
appreciated,
as much as possible.
she appreciated that you were thinking that, but, said that would never work. Yeah. She agreed that that would be great if it was structured this way, but, laughed and said, that will never work. And so, working with her, we structured this similarly to what she's got in other communities. And just, I know this is a lot, and especially for Finance Committee who's hearing this for the first time. The only rush on this is that Eversource is waiting for me to give an answer on whether we want them to cut us a check. I can say yes, and it will just flow to the FY '26 free cash, as when we close out for next year, which would be considered '27, but, we can wait. Or we can set this up and get going on this.
So the primary benefit of this is that we don't have to take it to a town meeting other than this warrant to spend the money going forward.
To spend out of it, correct. It would come to town meeting every year, annually, to vote on the spending limits of the revolving fund.
Okay, but the actual expenditures wouldn't have to be separately voted on by the
Right.
town. And that's the primary benefit of this fund.
I mean, that's definitely one of them. The other is that whether the people at this table change, we have a revolving fund set up for this specific use because we felt like this was important. I mean, granted, someone could come in and change it at some point, but it would need a vote of town meeting to do that. If we don't have a revolving fund that spells out what this is to be used for, it goes to free cash, and it could be used for anything and everything, which has its pluses and minuses, but.
We did also talk about the last meeting, whether we want a limit on what can be done without at least select board approval.
Mhm.
Is that something that is permissible?
Yeah, you can do that just through a simple policy.
And so if we do it this way, we are basically going to free up $300,000 or so of the DPW budget, because this will pay the electric bills, and then leave, 600, 700,000 to kind of be there in case of emergencies, things they need to, do kind of quickly, right? And that's
Yeah.
kind of like how to look at this, basically.
That, or as we prepare a capital plan and we realize something costs a lot, like a chiller, we could use this as a source of funding for that instead of what we had to do the last year with the creative financing for the Blueberry chiller.
Yeah, I think the chiller has been a big topic for years now. I think it would also help me to get a sense of what other types of capital projects this could be used for. Because I assume that there's going to be always something that's energy related that you could probably make a case for. But, any other examples? I think the air conditioning at the police department this past summer.
Yep.
I guess I'm trying to get a sense of how broad that can go.
Yeah.
What we can kind of
Well,
finagle
I
into
think
that.
if you want it broad, you should leave it as free cash, and then each year you vote the free cash to do capital projects. That is, other than, I'm trying to figure out that point. Go ahead, Maureen.
I just had a specific question about the use. When you described the use for energy infrastructure projects, was that the language? The first thing that jumped in my mind was the solar panels on the top of the school.
Mhm.
Is that the type of project that would qualify under this,
Yeah.
the language that we're setting up?
Yep.
That was my only question.
Go ahead.
I think that now that we're trying to kind of seeing what it can actually be used for, I think I'm a little disappointed, of course, that we can't make it more broad. I think if we're trying to balance the ability to, first I would say, I think the town should get the money now, so we should decide. But I think that if I'm trying to balance the benefit of being able to use it for anything we want, which I think is very important, now that we realize it can't be as broad if we do this, I personally think that that's a better, or more advantageous for the town. I'm a little worried, this is getting a little complicated. 5 years from now, the finance committee, the select board might not remember exactly what we were thinking, and like we can still use it for literally anything. It's just that you can't just, the town manager can't basically just spend immediately, essentially. And I think that it's better to be able to use it for anything we feel we need, rather than do this kind of scheme where it's like, pay for electricity and then use that for something else, and then who's gonna really remember that exactly was what this was for?
I just feel like when we have, when there is money out there, it gets eaten up by the schools. And that's, well, we can find infrastructure things there, sure, but I just feel like if the money goes, unless it's pointed somewhere, it ends up in the schools. And that's great, that's what our town does, but
That's a good point.
it does, we will see that happen, and it will take away
And
from
our
things we
goal
can
was
do.
to have a DP utilize this in some way,
Right.
maybe that will help them do that.
And I think one of the real advantages of doing it this way is that we are absolutely freeing up money in the DPW budget by taking off the electric accounts on the roll. So we could make it a lower amount and then have some of the payments go into this and then the rest go into the general fund?
Yeah, I mean, I can strike the Eversource payment out of here, and it will just be the recurring monthly payments from Nugent.
Which kind of makes sense, because that's what we can expect to be in a revolving fund, right?
Yeah, and then the 880 would go to free cash that you would close out, and you could allocate next fall.
I guess I was thinking more of, if we have
Half.
840,000 coming in from New Gen, we want at least to cover the bills, so that's $300,000 roughly. So we could say this is 500, but we also, we do want some flexibility to be quick and nimble, which is really the whole purpose. So I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but that's why we're all here.
Yeah, I can't speak for the full finance committee, but I would prefer that you actually had a policy that said these dollars would be budgeted into capital expenses, which would then allow the DPW to do capital projects, which we can't currently done. So to me, I think that would be a better use of it than the energy efficiency thing over time. I would also question buying into the future where we pay more in the front and then we get it on the back end. That's just weird to me, and I'm trying to think through the budget repercussions of that. 'Cause I haven't fully figured out how that shows up on each side of the table, but to me, a policy that's adhered to is probably better than this specific fund, if you want to use it broadly.
My question about the fund is, if we don't do this proposal, does that mean that the $300,000 that's supposed to be allocated towards paying the electric bill so that it doesn't have to, I guess it was coming out of DPW's budget? Are we saying that we don't do this, then we wouldn't have to pay that bill to free up that DPW money anymore? We could just decide to, man, we're not gonna do it this year, we'll do something else. And DPW, as far as the electric bill, last year we paid it, this year you're on your own. Is that the consequence of not doing this fund? Is that the only way to ensure that that those electric bills get paid?
The electric bills will be paid.
No, I'm not saying the electric
You
bill
mean
won't
the
get
free up
paid.
the-
What I mean is, it sounded like we're saying that the electric bill, the expense for the electric bill was something that was getting paid through DPW's budget. And by doing this, that is gonna relieve that, freeing up the money for DPW to spend in other ways.
Only because it had to be related to energy.
That's my question.
It's just arbitrary, yeah.
Right, and that's my question. So if we don't do this, then we don't have, then that would say we're not gonna do that anymore. That DPW's budget is gonna continue to be responsible for the electric bills, and we're not gonna be freeing up that $300,000 from DPW's budget anymore.
Right.
And the town could decide to just every year give the money to the DPW if it was in free cash. Although I understand Josh's point, which I think is a good one too.
Well, just back to Erica's point, and also if we just made a policy on it, it's very easy for policies to fall by the wayside. Money that just goes into the general pool, once it does that, it's very hard to guide, I guess. And I totally see what you're saying, because I think this is what our conversation was last week. How do we make this as flexible as possible and put it towards the things we want? But I think that we can't quite have it both ways, unfortunately.
Well, if you have to re-vote every year to put the money in, then in a sense it is a policy. You have to choose to re-vote to refund that money in there. I mean, because every year you can choose to not fund that money in there.
Well, you're only voting at town meeting for the expenditure limit.
It'll go
Oh.
into the account.
The revenues
Oh,
go
it
into
will all
the
go into the
fund.
account? Oh, yeah, I wouldn't do that. Because then what if, anyways, you're making a choice as to whether you restrict that money because you're not sure that you'll be able to say no to the school committee, is kind of what I'm hearing, right?
Well, yeah, kind of, a bit. But,
Okay.
Lynn, let me rephrase my question that I asked before. So, you said we could strike Eversource, like, put that into cash. But what I meant was, of the new gen credits that we get paid out every month, could we have some of those go into this fund, say $400,000 of that to cover our electric bill, and then the rest go into general fund?
I don't know. I would need to ask about that. Meaning I don't know how we would word it, and then trying to think if we have any other examples of that.
Yeah, I mean, just look, it said fund to receive some receipts, or it said a number on the receipts from the net metering agreements. I know that it's easy for me to say. It may not be easy to administer or get through the DOR. But to me, that's kind of the thread in the needle on, we want this to be used to get those electric bills off the books, and we still have money that we can use elsewhere for where the entire town or the powers that be think it's useful. And then maybe, and I also really like the idea of having some of this money to be used for kind of as a strike force on things we need quickly. As we saw, maybe not the chiller amount of money, but for the quick repairs that you can do without having to knock on doors trying to find the money.
Well, you can vote the money over to the finance committee fund,
That's true.
because apparently that's where all the quick money comes from.
Yeah.
Lynn, can I ask you, this is your proposal, can you talk about how strongly you feel that this would be valuable? I'm assuming you're in strong support of it, but
I am.
can you share with us?
I am. I think it meets the resolution of the Energy and Sustainability Committee that they put forward at town meeting about energy efficiency goals. So I think this is a huge step towards that. I think that we can kind of dictate how broad we interpret energy improvements. I will push that as far as we can with finance director, accountant, and our outside auditors, okaying for how far we can go with that. But we have a lot of work to do energy efficiency wise, and this isn't even gonna come close to covering what we need to do. So I'm not worried about not having projects. And if anything, I'm viewing this as a kind of like a energy capital plan. But I also understand, wanting to have a little bit more oversight. And I think, to me, that's where the policy comes into play. If it's a project over, say, $500,000 or whatever threshold you set, then maybe it needs select board approval. But right now, we don't have any of those thresholds in the other 3 revolving funds. One of them is under a different general law section, but it's still a revolving fund. And things come in and get spent out of that with just under the general law.
One thing that I think is very important is that we use the money we have for the things that we feel are the highest priority. And I guess one thinking is that there might be an energy project, but that's not really where we would spend the money if we had it, right, in any point in time. I guess you're saying there's always going to be something that's very high priority.
Mhm.
and that's not even an issue, which
Mhm.
makes sense, if that's true, so.
How would we feel about taking out the one-time Eversource payment? Freeing that up for capital? I know it's a one-time payment, but, there's always something to do. And then leaving the, net metering payments in this account. Because, this is why we hire Lynn and why we give her great reviews every year. I trust you on this. If you think, there's things we can do with this, then, that goes a long way with me. So what does the rest of the board think on that?
I also like the idea of freeing up the cash in the DPW's budget. I think given the challenges that they're up against, I think that they can use that. That will help them out a lot, and that'll help the town out a lot to have that type of money in their budget free up. So I do like that aspect of it. I think the one question I think we're all saying is, what's the definition of related to energy infrastructure and how broad is that? I think that would have been great to have some examples of that.
Could we have used it for the pool repairs?
Yeah, that's.
Is there energy going to the pool, like
There
there's electricity?
is, there is. We would have, it might have been a stretch, but we could have tried as much as possible for.
There's some electric work.
Yeah.
Well, who is the authority that would say you're not doing it right?
It's
Like someone
gonna-
within the town?
It's gonna come
Or-
up through finance, through accounting, and then ultimately through our outside audit. They'll flag it.
Oh, okay.
What specifically Lynn's referring to is when we certify our free cash and when we have our auditors come in, they're looking at our balance sheet, they're looking at our special revenues accounts, looking at our revolving funds. They're determining whether or not the transactions that we pursue are legitimate under the law when it comes to allowability. So one of the things that Lynn and I talked about, and we talked about with council, is to make sure that the language being used here would pass muster of DOR, because DOR is very specific about revolving funds and how they want it structured.
Mhm.
So 5 or 6 years down the road, if we do this, like 5 or 6 years down the road, we decide that this is not the best use and we should be using this money towards something else, can we change it at that point, or are we kind of stuck with this?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what would that process look like to change it?
Bylaw amendment.
Okay, so it would just be changing the nature of the revolving fund, or removing the revolving
Yep.
fund? Okay.
Yep.
That's a great point.
We had a solid waste revolving fund for years, or recycling, whatever it was called. And ultimately, the town meeting did away with it. That was, I wanna say 2020.
Do you mean
maybe.
the enterprise fund?
There was was it an enterprise fund?
Yeah, it was an enterprise fund. It was in 21 that we got rid of it.
The solid waste
Yep.
of recycling, okay. But yeah, you could do the same for a revolving fund. You could modify it as long as it met, parameters by statute and DOR, or you could get rid of it completely.
Josh?
Go ahead.
So is there anything, I'm just looking at 2044, we're talking about like now in the next few years, when 2044 hits, is there anything that we can do, whether it's policy related, to make sure that it's not a huge sting when it's 2044 and we've been spending all of this money on good projects and all of a sudden we're in a tough situation in the future?
Mm-hmm. So I can't speak to what will happen with net metering agreements then, because that's, who knows, but one thing that Ian and I have been doing, and Ian mostly, is tracking funds that, when we adopt certain things, the funds are available for 20 or 30 years, and that sounds great, but we don't want to leave the people that come after us with this big headache. Like, one of the ones we track right now is the MGM payment. That's not here forever. And how do we start weaning ourselves off of that? And so I would hope we would do the same for this. If it looks like those net metering agreements won't be renewed or, don't exist anymore in 2044. We have the same with PEG access money from cable. Who knows what will happen with that? And then the opioid settlement money, that is till 2035.
On balance, I think, I'm personally happy to support this. I think Josh O'Neith made great points that really helped explain like the reversibility of it and helping the town side of the budget. And the fact that we can, you know, change future people. Everyone here at this table is a different person, and future select boards can decide what they want.
And, sorry. And just, we had a real life example of this summer with the air conditioning at the police station. So because we weren't able to, because we didn't have a revolving fund like this to address it in the moment, what ended up happening there? If you can kind of talk through that as
Yeah.
kind of a real world example of, why it would be advantageous to have something like this.
Yeah, so they brought in the outside electrical contractor to kind of troubleshoot what was happening, and then it falls under the electrical contract that the DPW has, like the on-call one. And so what they use there just takes away from something else that might come up. Or potentially if they use all the money they had under that contract, then we'd be looking at a finance committee reserve fund request, like we've had to do in the past for our hot water heater at the police station before. So a lot of it's just, let's figure out this immediate need, and then let's cross our fingers and hope we don't have another one the rest of the year.
So were they able to get it fixed this summer?
They patched it together. It is not a permanent solution.
So it might just end up costing the town even more, because we kind of did a patchwork solution, and then probably we'll have to actually go in and fix it
Yeah.
the right way. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anybody else on Article 4?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of
Close
close out on this. I would say that initially I didn't like the idea of having some type of restriction towards this money, just because we have such limited revenue sources in our town that to restrict the money in any kind of way kind of felt, I was uncomfortable with. But thinking about the backlog of infrastructure projects that we have that could fit into this, and how this, we will always have some project that is a high enough need for this to address, and freeing up some of the DPW budget, that does make sense. And also that we really don't have anything that can meet, that we can move quickly on. That we don't have any kind of fund like this currently, and to kind of introduce that into our, fiscal, the fiscal tools that we have, that does make sense to me. So I will say at the beginning of this conversation, I was not favorable towards this, but now I think I've come around and I'm in favor of it.
Could I bring up the point about, saying over a certain amount, they should ask for, the town manager should ask for select board approval, whether it's like 100,000, 200,000, 250, like some, I'm thinking of some range like that. But what do you envision is the most reasonable, given you kind of know what amounts you need to spend for, like just on an everyday basis that might come up?
I think it'd be reasonable to start at either 100,000 or 250. I think any project of that size really
You need to tell us
warrants
about
you
anyway, yeah.
having, being involved in it.
All right, so let's start a policy concurrently.
So are you guys leaving the Eversource money in, or are you taking the Eversource money out?
What would the finance committee think about that? I think I know your answer, but.
So it looks like the section that you're talking about is the fourth line from the bottom. To be expended by the Department of Public Works, including but not limited to support all town electrical accounts. That's what pays the electric bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite part of this. I like the idea of having a limit that the select board has to be checked in with for the expenditures. I'm sort of ambivalent about the speed, the speed of access to the money, but the idea of freeing up DPW budget, that's the most attractive thing. So I would you want to get rid of that part. If you got rid of everything else and left in that, we're gonna take the money and pay the electric bill to take that out of DPW's budget.
Well, I think the question is, so what, there's 800, is it 80?
Roughly, it's probably more now. but-
Yeah. So the net metering agreements have been building up for years, and so we have, I don't know, say $900,000. Should we put that in this account now, or do we have something else we want to spend it on right away? I mean, I guess if it gets put into this account, you can spend it right away, but you have to check
If you
in with
put it
us.
into this account, you can spend it right away. If you don't, you can't spend it till next fall, a year from now.
Do we,
No, no, because it has to be part of certified free cash.
do we need, do you need us to, do you have a project that you have in mind that this money could go towards right away?
The only thing I would say at this point is to supplement the capital plan. I don't have a specific project, the capital plan.
Oh, I'm
asks
sorry, I
for
meant
now.
out of, if it was in this fund,
Oh,
is there an
energy.
infrastructure
Oh, I see.
project that you'd want to use it for right away?
We need to address the issues at the police station in terms of the HVAC, and then the same with this building. The window units were fine for this summer, but that is not a permanent solution.
Oh, I hadn't looked at that thing, jeez.
Yeah.
That is ancient. Okay,
That's how this room is cooled.
wow. So then,
So we have a vested interest in making it better, clearly, if we're gonna be here now.
I've been through some hot ones at the school, so yeah.
Knowing how our capital funds are going to be decreasing every year because we're borrowing off them into the future right now, I do think that if you could say, all right, we'll put half of that money in this fund to fund those two things, and the other half, hold on and put it into capital plan, would make sense, because I think you have a lot of non-energy efficient capital stuff that is hugely delinquent as well. But it's, but yeah, I mean, you can find ways to make it look like it's energy efficiency stuff, but I do think that the capital fund in general is high or greater priority than a lot of that stuff.
If we wanted to put some into the capital fund, you just rewrite the article that some of it would go there.
No.
It would,
I
That'd
would
be a
need a
free cash
separate
fund, yes.
article.
you'd have to create another article.
No,
It's
actually.
too late for that?
No, we couldn't, because we don't have the funds yet. So it would be next fall. We'd move the money next fall.
Okay,
Right?
That's correct.
so you can't really.
Oh, so we couldn't.
The only way you would have access to the funds in this fiscal year is if we were to set up a revolving fund. We would not be able to access the funds until free cash certifies in the fall because they are part of FY '26 revenues.
Can you please keep it down, the audience? Thank you. Sorry, so Ian, you were saying that the capital, the only way to have access in this fiscal year is to have it in a revolving fund?
Because they are FY '26 revenues that we have not yet received, we would only be able to access the funds in this current fiscal year if it were set up as a revolving fund. Otherwise, we would have to wait until fall as part of our free cash certification. Correct.
Even though we knew they were income in the May meeting.
No, we
couldn't
did
use
not.
it.
We did not know
No,
that.
in next May's meeting. We would know that it was income. There's no way we could actually include that as part of the budget in May?
It's coming in as a revenue that wasn't,
It's considered miscellaneous
Yeah.
revenues. I mean,
Okay, all right, well,
it wasn't budgeted. We didn't have, I'm thinking on the fly here of ways that I don't see how it would. The same thing happened with the settlement money for the DPW lawsuit.
yeah.
That came in, it was unaccounted, not unaccounted for, but it was unanticipated revenue that we could not realize until free cash, which is why there's an article on here. It came in and hit free cash, which we couldn't do anything with it until free cash was certified. So I anticipate this is going to be treated the exact same way.
And Erica, I completely agree with you that there are, enough capital projects that, need to be funded. And I think what my hope is that enough of those capital projects would fall under this, that we could start knocking those off.
This might be the middle school building committee member in me, but I would rather, if we know that there's something we need, let's order it now, because there's delays and there's inflation and tariffs, and so I think that we should get the money in hand if we can.
I mean, one of the major energy efficiency upgrades you do at your house is you replace your windows. And that, I mean, that's, this fund
Could that count
isn't
as an
even.
energy improvement?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it's a lot broader than I think we're realizing.
Everyone
Good
content?
discussion.
All right, yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you, Lynn. You wanna go up to Article 5?
All right, 5. This is, it's a lot of words, but essentially, we're not actually spending any of this money in a new way. This is, speaking of windows, we have applied for the accelerated repair program through the MSBA. And we will find out if we are accepted into that program after town meeting. If we are accepted into that program, we need to confirm funding for a feasibility study and design by January. So instead of having to call a special town meeting, we have this article on here, assuming that we get accepted into the program. We feel like we're in really good standing to do that. And what we would be doing is repurposing the $300,000 in community preservation money that was a project that had been approved at town meeting in 2022 to start the window replacement project. Once they did some initial analysis, they figured out that we were not going to even come close to having enough money, and so that project got paused. And the only way we're really going to be able to complete this is through that MSBA program. So we're using that this article uses that $300,000 to fund the feasibility study and schematic design if we are accepted into the program.
Is it going to cost $300,000?
No, it should not. There's 290 left out of that 300,000. We don't have a total amount for the feasibility study yet, but we believe that 300 is going to more than cover it.
I had 1.4 million in my head for the window replacement. Does that sound right?
I think it's north of 3.
Oh, wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what is in the rapid repair, what is the percentage reimbursement on that?
Too soon to say exactly.
We have to do this first, obviously.
Yeah, and we're already in it for the roof, so that's great. And there was 90 applications, we made the cut down to 40. We did a site visit with them here, so we feel like we have a really good chance at getting this.
I know this process is a little bit different than how we usually do it, but shouldn't we be voting to adopt each article as we go along?
You probably should, because then the finance committee can take those articles as they are listed and vote on their recommendations after. I would suggest that.
Yeah, all right. You want to go back to 1?
Sure, yeah. I will move that we adopt Article 1.
Second.
Anything further? All those in favor?
All right, I'll move that we adopt Article, can I just do them in a bunch?
Yep.
Okay, I vote that we adopt Articles 2 through 5.
Second.
Anything further on that? All those in favor? Okay. Lynn?
Yes. It's just,
I'm just going to do it all.
Okay,
Finish at the end, but
Yeah.
This is better.
You can do that too.
6 is funding the collective bargaining agreement for the DPW for FY26, along with wage adjustment COLAs for non-union personnel. The DPW, the explanation pretty much covers it all, but the DPW has a new contract, 2026 through 28, and with that, there's a new wage scale that we really feel pretty excited about, if this article passes, it will fund that wage scale, and then we can start advertising for all the vacancies that we have with those new rates, which makes us incredibly competitive and hopefully get those positions filled. And then the COLA for non-union personnel, usually this is done as an article at the annual town meeting, and it was there. But the amount listed in order to get our budget to balance was an amount that would have yielded a 0.5 COLA for non-union staff. And so we've held off on issuing that COLA with the hope that we could present this article to actually give a COLA that is reflective of the market and a little bit more, I hate to say respectful, but respectful of the workforce that we have. So that's this article.
How's hiring going over there, by the way?
Pretty good. We are seeing a healthy amount of applications come in, which is great. It hasn't always meant that people show up at interviews, though.
I mean, that's an improvement.
Yeah.
These people don't look at it and say, I'm not gonna do that. So,
Yeah.
good.
Lynn, in past finance committee meetings, I know there's been some discussion about, the, significant percentage increase in the staffing for DPW and your, assessment of how short the DPW remains. And 30% seems, is that, so I guess that's my
Yep.
question, like, how short are you still?
Yeah. When we were in negotiations, we were hovering around a 20% vacancy rate. I'd say we're probably still around there. I haven't run the, stats on the department in a couple months. We're right around there still, though. It seems like every time we make some really great hires, we have some retirements. And so that's what we're having right now. It's not people leaving necessarily for, greener pastures. They're actually retiring. And so we've got 3 of those right now that just happened. So we've made some headway, but it's not where we need to be.
It's a good question, something we talked about a good amount. You wanna move on, second?
Yeah, sure. I'll move we adopt Article 6.
Second.
Anything further? All those in favor? Okay, Lynn?
7. Okay, so as you all know, we had a special town meeting and a special town election. Those were not, the funds for those were not covered in the operating budgets for the various offices that had to come up with funds to add some things for that, for both of those events. I know Finance Committee is very well aware of this because we made use of their reserve fund, so thank you. And at that meeting, I promised to put forward an article to replenish your reserve fund. So that is this, along with replenishing some funding in school hardware that was used for all the tech stuff that got added. And then the town clerk had extra staffing costs and ballot printing costs that were not carried in the FY26 budget.
So, obviously, this money's spent. Is there, and I hope we don't have a big meeting like that, we won't need one for a while, to spend that much money. Is there any lessons to be learned about how much we spent? Did we overspend? Because I know we thought there would be a lot more people than there were.
Mm-hmm.
If something like this did come up, are there things we can do differently?
Some of the IT stuff, the 9800, that is a one-time purchase, so we have it. I mean, just as technology ages out. The town clerk stuff, that really, I don't think could have been avoided, no matter what. Ballots costs what they cost to print, and then
We have to have one for everyone, just in
Yeah.
case, yeah.
And the rental of the poll pads as well.
Yeah.
That's something that if there was only 5 poll pads at at the special town meeting, check-in would have gone until 10 p.m.
Gotcha.
probably.
Yep.
Okay,
So it's more of it was an efficiency gaining as well.
all right. Anything from the finance committee?
All right, I'll move
This
to
is
it.
your opportunity to give us more.
If you had more, we'd keep asking.
We'll create a revolving fund. You guys.
I did have one question on this, actually, if you don't mind. So Lynn, in the clerk's office, are any of these numbers like related to the increases that we're seeing in terms of just, could it be helpful if we had like another part-time person in the clerk's office? I'm just trying to, as we see these numbers increasing and with all the elections and demands of that office, is it worth like taking a look at potentially funding someone part-time?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think we would need to look at it, but the problem with clerk's offices, town clerk's offices and city clerk's offices is that it's a lot of work in a very condensed amount of time. And so it's hard to justify having someone year-round because, you know, if you don't have an election, you're not as overwhelmed. It's when you have an election and, you know, you drop everything those 4 weeks leading up to it, and then you've got the cleanup right after. So I don't know that I could justify a part-time person year-round.
I just didn't know fiscally if it made more sense, that's why
Yeah.
when we see these increases, that's all. Thank you.
All right, I'll move to adopt Article 7.
Second.
Anything further? All those in favor?
So Article 8, I've also, I think all of you maybe know about this, but, no, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. This is fire overtime. I was thinking of something else. The fire department has had a considerable amount of overtime spent already this fiscal year. They have an employee in the academy that's necessitated overtime for other people to fill that vacancy while the person's out. We've also noticed an increased call volume, and so they've been trying to fill, you know, positions to make sure we're adequately staffed to keep up with that call volume. With that also means that there's increased revenue coming in. So it's a good problem to have, but it's a challenging problem, just making sure that we are not burning out our fire and EMS staff. So what this article funds is an increase to the fire overtime because we are going to deplete it, and an addition of 2 full-time firefighter paramedics to allow the department to continue to meet this call volume.
Go ahead.
In the explanation portion of this, I was wondering whether we should put that this is funded through the increase in ambulance receipts. That, you know, this is not something that we're taking, you know, that we decided that we need to spend $200,000+ on, but that this is in reaction to there being an increase in that same amount of ambulance receipts.
So it isn't technically, it isn't being funded out of ambulance receipts in this article, because we can't do it that way. This would fund out of free cash, which then they bring in more ambulance receipts, which, you wanna get into
Yeah.
how you handle that?
I'm trying to pull up the numbers, but just offhand, the way it works is in our general fund budget, we have our local receipts. One of those local receipts is our ambulance revenues. What we do is we set a specific amount for the year. Say we bring in $1 million. If the revenue brings in 1.2 million, that 200,000 of excess goes towards the ambulance fund, which pays for new ambulances, equipment to fund the ambulances, benefits, and indirect costs related to EMS services. So technically, we're not funding positions, but the ambulance revenues subsidizes the fund, or subsidizes the fire department.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I don't know, I feel like it would be helpful in some way, I think, to recognize that this is kind of just in reaction or
Well, I was wondering-
because of the increase in ambulance receipts, because we did, you know, increase wages that led to increased staffing, that led to this increase of ambulance receipts that now is necessitating more staff.
Right, what I got from Chief Rigney along the same lines is, if we add staff, it does 2 things. One, it means that there's always somebody from Long Meadow showing up when you call. And 2, it saves us from paying another town for a call. So I don't know if this is kind of beyond the scope of this, but that was my thinking, that this is, I don't know if we wanna, if we can include this somehow, but it allows more calls from here, so we don't have to pay, and now I'm blanking on.
I don't think we
the
pay
call.
another, I don't think we pay
Yeah,
other
it's just
towns to
municipal
call, but we
aid.
lose the
Oh,
income. from
right,
that.
that's what I meant,
Yeah.
yeah, not pay another town,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they get paid.
Are you,
Correct.
do you
Yeah.
think you mean because when we explain this to the town, it's important to acknowledge that that's how the
Yeah,
decision
yeah,
making?
just in here, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So-
just in the explanation.
Because we wouldn't be doing this.
You can just make a little
If we
phrase that
didn't have
says,
the
you know,
examples
due
receipts.
to, you know, increased workforce allows, you know, we're losing money, we're not capturing all the money we could be from the ambulance fund. This is like going to be a good investment because it's actually be profitable for the town, you know.
Yeah, that's.
Yep.
Say something to that effect.
Yep, yep, we can work on the explanation.
Yeah.
As
Alright.
somebody who received a $2,000 bill when her son had to go by ambulance, I'm not sure we should like really brag about that. I think I don't think you're gonna have any problem getting this passed. You can put that in there, but I wouldn't view this as a money-making operation personally.
Well, no, that's not what I meant. I didn't.
I know that,
Yeah,
but
no,
you
but I
know,
mean,
but
like,
just
no,
be
it's
careful
we would
with some
not,
of that,
we would
like-
not be doing this if we didn't.
Yeah,
Right.
so just something like the revenues generated from the additional ambulance use is expected to offset this salary. Like, that would be the way you would put it, right?
Because I guess my fear is I don't want people to say, oh, you know, could we be using this 211,000 towards something else, right?
Yeah.
I want to make a movie about Article 8.
Second.
Yeah, anything further? All those in favor?
Article 9 is a water main replacement project on Western Drive. Select Board has heard a lot about this, and it's one of the major capital items for DPW this upcoming construction season.
I was able to talk to Ian a little bit about this today, and I thought it was very helpful that Ian I asked Ian to kind of like put these articles where we're borrowing more money, also in light of what we're gonna be borrowing for the middle school, and get his assessment on our debt service going forward, how far out of policy we will be. Ian, I think it'd be helpful if, just for everyone's education, you kind of share some of your
Sure.
valuable
So,
insight.
just in terms of what Andrew's talking about, the select board has a policy, specifically the debt management policy, which states that general fund debt service has a percentage that it is not allowed to pass, or at least is recognized that it shouldn't pass, which is general fund debt service divided by general fund operating budget. So it cannot be no more than 12%. Now, Andrew's aware of this because we've had this conversation in the past as to the projects that are coming up in the future. And I think it's important to note that a lot of planning was done in the interim to make sure that we had the borrowing capacity for the school. That was utmost importance for the select board, that was utmost importance for town staff to make sure that we had that. That being said, DPW and specifically Sean has highlighted the various challenges that the town has in terms of its water main and sewer main capacity, as well as road maintenance and a various amount of other projects. So what you see before you today is prioritizations for the DPW in terms of continuously reducing the risk impact of broken water mains and sewer work that needs to be done. Now, what does that mean in terms of what Andrew asked? So our current debt service outlook is the following. As of today, we are at about 10.81%. If we include the September borrowing approved, which was the road work, the jet truck, and the new chiller, we're at about 11.67%. So that means with the current proposals, we would be over the policy limit. Now, there's some caveats here.
Can I just interject, the policy is 12%. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying if we add these projects here, so. If we were to include the upcoming middle school debt, we're well over the policy limit. Now, when we did the high school back in 2012, we borrowed that in 2 tranches. This will delay some of the impact of the town's debt service if we choose to go this route. Now, when we presented the borrowing at the town meeting, we assumed the borrowings all at once. So there's some numbers here that can change. It's important to note that planning was done in advance of this in order to have DPW and Ty and Bond set the rates. I showed Andrew 2 schedules which went over the water project's total rate impact and the sewer rates total impact, which showed that for the sewer rates, Article 9 or Article 10.
10 is sewer.
10 is sewer. Article 10 being the sewer work would be able to be fully covered by the increases in the sewer rate as of this last summer. So what that means to residents is the current approved capital funds that was voted in would pay for this debt service. It would not require an additional rate setting process. With the water mains, there would be some impact, but it was largely negated by the approved capital funds that were set. So this said another way is that there was prior planning done to make sure that these projects, important in nature, would not cause undue impact to residents.
So can I just so these are being covered by the additional charges in the water and sewer rates, which were already passed, so we wouldn't have to increase again because
Correct.
of this step?
We would not need to increase again until the spring or summer, when we would vote again, and that would be determined by the select board at the time.
And last thing I would add is, Ian we're very well aware that with the middle school borrowing that we're going is very high. I think he mentioned that it would be 16%.
Yes.
At some point. But only the things that we are very, very high priority are we going to be borrowing for. I think everybody understands that. Ian certainly does. And Lynn, so just want to make that clear.
Ian, I got a question about the 16%.
Sure.
You talked earlier about the borrowing coming online for school.
Mhm.
And how that was, going back to the planning that you talked about, was going to coincide in some way with other borrowing levels decreasing or dropping off. How long is the 16% gonna be the number?
So I'm still determining what exactly it will be, because it really depends on when we go out to borrow it. But let's say that we borrowed next year for the substantial piece of the middle school. We would see the impact of this for at least 5 to 6 years. And then during that 5 to 6 year period, it would decrease over the life of the loan. Now, that to be said, there is debt during that time that falls off, so it's very likely that we won't stay at that highest level immediately, but it's something that within the debt management policies I'm reviewing to see how our town shapes up against similar sized budgets, to see if there are changes that we can do in order to be better suited for future policies.
Thank you.
I think this is all, thank you for bringing this up, Andrew. This is all very prudent for us to think about as we continue on, because as we've seen, there's a lot of wants that the town has, a lot of needs that the town has. I mean, we have to borrow at some point, but we have to think and look at it in a larger context.
I also asked Ian to do a little research, because I asked him at what point would you be very alarmed? Like, is there a metric that's considered best practice? Off the cuff, he arbitrarily said 20% would be very scary, but I asked him to look at other towns in the state and see where they're at, for example, like an average debt service ratio.
Yeah,
You
so
already looked?
I did an initial look just to see in terms of where we were in terms of similar size debt service. And if I were to look at the 5 nearest communities to Longmeadow in terms of annual debt service, they range from 3.94% to 14%, and an average of about 8.6% of their debt service percentage.
That's sobering.
So in terms of other communities, we're a little high at our level, but it's something to know.
Yeah, thanks.
Anything else on Article 9?
Yeah, I'll just say that, thanks for that explanation, Ian, and this is just to kind of remind folks that we set the water rates the way that we did, so that we wouldn't have to have significant spikes every time we need to do a large project, and, you know, that is why we set the water rate in that way. This is something that's been previewed for 2 years now. We've also been talking for 2 years now about using our water rates to pave roads as well. This is something that is practice that other communities have done, we have not done, and, you know, when we're taking a look at how we can improve our infrastructure, we should be looking at every opportunity to do that. And this is something that other communities have done, and, you know, folks that we've talked to, have talked about, you know, how much it has helped their infrastructure, in other communities, and I'm glad that we are now adopting that, and using this practice.
Beneath, if I could just add, just so that it's abundantly clear, we are not just using the water and sewer enterprise funds to pave the road. You cannot get to that infrastructure without taking up the road surface. And so naturally, you need to replace and repair that road surface once you've disturbed it. So this is not just a road resurfacing project, just so it's abundantly clear.
Motion?
I will move to adopt Article 9.
Second.
Any further? All those in favor?
So 10 is a parallel project to this. It's for the sewer line in that same project area. Much of that can be slip lined, which is one of the reasons why you see the cost so much lower. And then in the areas that it cannot be slip lined, they will be replacing the sewer line.
And for the Finance Committee, we talked about this at the last meeting. This is one of the oldest areas in town, so Western Drive is, you know, right on the edge. A lot of, when we had Ty and Bond look at our infrastructure, a lot of the water and sewer lines there are 100 years old and are on the cusp. They break all the time. This is sorely needed, but we can't, and there's the rest of that part of town, we have to move over, but we have to start on Western Drive, which is a big project.
I move we adopt Article 10.
Second.
Any further? All those in favor?
11 is another water project, to replace the water meters. They have reached the end of their useful life. This has been on the capital plan for many years and has now risen to the level of needing to be expedited, which is why you see it here on a fall town meeting. One of the things that is great, and I don't think has been emphasized enough, is that it will no longer necessitate an employee to have to do the drive-by reads. They will be able to be monitored wirelessly, which also gives residents access to their accounts on a more real-time basis as well.
Is this an energy infrastructure project in any way? We just talked about we don't want to borrow, adding a 1.5 million on there. They probably use less power.
These are the smart meters.
It could be. If you really want to pursue that approach, we could look at that. The caution I would say is that there is a funding source associated, which is water rates, which is different than energy efficiency projects, but we could look at it.
Can you clarify what that means? What you're
To
saying,
do
this would
energy
be funded.
efficiency projects, we don't have user fees or rates coming in to help do those. Whereas a water meter replacement, we have water rates that are paying to keep the enterprise going.
So since we have a different funding or payment source for the borrowing, does this, it still counts against our DSR?
Yes, well, any general obligation bonds that we take out, whether it's enterprise fund or general fund, count against our DSR.
This is kind of an example of a caveat, though. It's being paid out of a different source.
Yeah.
Okay. My question was only half facetious.
Can you give us an idea of how many meters right now don't work, and we're just estimating? Like,
I
what
don't
percent?
have that number. I can get it for you the next
Okay.
meeting, but I don't have it
Is
right
this, so I've had this with clients before, where the town just won't do the reading. They'll say, no, you have to get like if you're selling your house, you have to get the meter changed. which, yeah, is.
Yeah, they've been doing that,
It's a massive pain.
yes.
Yeah, okay. Even just for scheduling, it's hard, okay. It's a lot of money, but we have more, it's good to have a payment source on tap.
And is it true that a new meter only lasts 10 years? So in 10 years, am I reading that right, or am I misunderstanding that?
Yep,
So this would have to, they'd all have to be replaced in 10 years?
yeah, I mean, they're,
That doesn't sound very long.
it's like, not to make this simple, but it's like a refrigerator. Like one you bought years and years and years ago, the technology was not there, so they lasted a lot longer. Now these are really technical meters, the components don't last as long.
It's a technical thing that has water running through it, right, so. it's- We're near.
It's like your laptop. Do you want it 10 years?
Ian, do you know what the intended term of the borrowing is? Would that
So,
line up with 10 years?
That's a great question. So initially, my thought was to do this over 5 years, because given the cost of the project and given our capital funds available in the sewer project, we could do this aggressively and pay it off over 5 years. I also did schedules for 10 and 15 years, but I would certainly, if the board asked me, I would recommend doing 5 years. And just to add a final point to that, that goes to what I said earlier, where there would be no rate impact if we were to do a 5-year project.
I move we adopt Article 11.
Second.
Anything further? All those in favor?
Okay, Article 12, I mentioned earlier, this is the $400,000 in settlement money that came from the DPW lawsuit. It was certified as part of our free cash, and I am proposing with this article to move it to the demolition of the old DPW facility, to supplement funding we already have for that, to help get us to the point where we have enough funds to take that building down.
Make a motion to adopt Article 12.
Second.
Anything further? All those in favor?
13 is new equipment for the grounds division at the DPW, using free cash to fund a new Sand Pro machine and a new mower. These would have been capital items, but this has been kind of our practice over the last few years of using free cash to help go after some of these purchases that really don't meet a priority that allows them to be funded through capital. As you see, the Sand Pro is 18 years old, and then the mower, we actually only have one mower that's currently working, so this is sorely needed for springtime.
I move we adopt Article 13.
Second.
All those in favor? None further?
12 is, I'm sorry, 14. I'm not gonna bring us back. 14, this is to fund the streetlight account, which was the account that was used to allow the contract to be signed to do the Long Meadow High School pool repairs. If we had held off until town meeting to come up with the funds to sign that contract, the pool would not have been open in time for swim season to start. That work is, if it is not already done, it is almost done, and it will not impact the swim season starting. So I made a decision in August to move ahead with that, with transferring those, internal transfer of those funds to allow that contract to be signed so the work could get started, with the understanding with DPW that I would bring this article forward to replenish the streetlight account so we can continue to pay our electricity bills.
I thank you for doing that. I know that was, it's tough to make decisions like that on the fly, but I'm glad you did it. You know, the school will be happy.
I'll move, we adopt Article 14.
Second.
Anything further? All those in favor?
Okay, 15. This is to fund the town's portion of the grant match for the Bliss Playground renovation. So this is part of a larger land and water conservation grant. Grant itself is $1.6 million. The town will be reimbursed $820,000 roughly from the Land and Water Conservation Fund. The balance of this is coming from CPA, which we received in the spring. We had hoped that we were going to find a different funding source for the remainder of the funds, but that has not materialized, and the contract's been signed and we need to get moving on this. It needs to be wrapped up by the end of '26. The playground's been ordered, work will start, and we're eager to see this done.
I move we adopt Article 15.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Okay, 16 is to fund Phase 2 design work for the Long Meadow Street TIP project. This, as you all know, Long Meadow Street is very long. It has been broken out into multiple phases. This will allow us design work to keep us on or potentially ahead of schedule for the Transportation Improvement Plan funding, which is federal dollars that are available in Western Massachusetts. We have done incredibly well because of DPW's proactive nature in funding design work in the last couple of years, to the extent that one of the projects later on is, you'll see, is we're accelerated. It's actually the next article. And so we're hopeful that this will remain the same. Article 16, if we keep funding design and keep us ahead of schedule, when a project that falls off schedule in Western Mass, we are standing there with our hand up saying we are ready to go and we can move up. And that's exactly what happened for 17. So this funds that design work.
I move we adopt Article 16.
Second.
Any further? All those in favor?
So 17, like I was explaining, this was actually not supposed to come to us until next year, but because another project has fallen off, we have moved up, and we are about 6 months ahead with these easements, which is great. This is technically Phase 1 of Long Meadow Street resurfacing, and we have 10 temporary easements and 1 permanent easement. This would fund those easements. We'll do the formal legal taking of the easement and fund it.
Is that supposed to be 2,643?
I don't believe so, no. It's not a big area.
2 square feet? 10 easements?
I will verify it while we are here, because I have all of that from Tim.
Good catch.
That'd be very
I'm
hard.
confident you are correct.
I
From you, it'll be this.
Expensive easements.
Yeah, go for it. I'm just
I
gonna
move
take
we
minutes
approve
for
Article
it.
17, if necessary, with correction.
Second.
Okay, and seeing, any further discussion? And I just said, this is something people might ask about, because I have some friends who got land taken on Long Meadow Street.
You're right.
It is?
Yep, it's supposed to be a comma.
All right, yeah, so we can fix that.
Yep.
I was kind of shocked by how much some people got on Long Meadow Street.
Yeah.
How much of the 500,000 is towards the compensation versus the design and?
I don't know if I have that breakdown.
Luckily, here there's only 1 permanent easement, though.
Yeah.
The temporary is just like construction related.
Right. But even the temporary,
I think it-
they can add up,
Yeah.
because it's like for 2 years.
I might not have it for you tonight, but I will have it.
Just have it for town meeting.
And you'll also have it when you vote on them.
Yeah, okay, right. Okay. We have a motion, I'm just, all those in favor?
18 is actually just a correction. At the annual town meeting, the warrant that was sent to every household listed the incorrect fiscal year in the article, but the motion had the right fiscal year, but it was a consent agenda. So this was really just a.
Cover our bases.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just fixing, it said FY 2024, this is just fixing it, so it says 26, so it's the right year.
I'm gonna read out Article 18.
Second.
Further, all those in favor?
Okay. 19 is our standard one that puts the CPA money into buckets.
I move we approve Article 19.
Second.
Okay, any further? All those in favor?
All right, I'll move that we close the town warrant.
Second.
Anything further? All those in favor? Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Finance Committee.
Thank you.
Appreciate your input and the discussion.
If you need me, because they're gonna vote now.
Erica.
Did you?
gotta adjourn.
Yeah, you have to adjourn.
But you're just adjourning to another meeting.
Yeah, to reconvene.
Okay.
So someone needs to make a motion.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Kara, you in favor?
I'm in favor. You go. Sorry about that.
Okay, we'll be going to another meeting.
All right, thank you all. That might have been the
Thank you.
longest article discussion we've had. It was very useful. We appreciate it.
Text me if you need me.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
and while we will now, is it interviews next?
Yes.
We'll move on to board and committee interviews. We have 3 interviews. Is everyone confirmed, Peggy? I see 2.
Oh, they're in, yep. Yeah, I see they're in now. I think we also had Ann Slick on the list, but I'm not sure that she's here.
Okay.
So we do have Catherine Dressel and Sarah, who are both applying for Historic District Commission.
And do we have, how many?
Went to the high school, I did send her an email.
Oh.
when they were here.
Okay. Good idea. How many openings are there?
There are, I believe at this time, there are 3 full-time and then 3 alternate, because we had this issue at the beginning of the fiscal year where Cliff Scott termed out.
Oh, right.
So actually, Sarah is currently on the committee. She is reapplying as she was an alternate member. She has a current term, but she's reapplying for a full-time member. Catherine Dressel's also applying for a full-time member, and there are spots available.
Okay, great. All right, Catherine and Sarah, if you could introduce yourself, please, your name and your address.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
I am Catherine Dressel, I go by Katie, I am at 857 Long Meadow Street. Hi, I'm Sarah and I'm at 302 Williams Street.
Okay, thank you both for your application, and Sarah for already being on the commission. We appreciate your work. Why don't you go in order, Katie and then Sarah, why don't you tell us why your interest in the commission?
Sure, so my house is currently situated in a historic district. Very proud of that. I knew what I was getting into when I purchased the house about 1.5 years ago with my young family. Sarah Morgan is, I believe, the chair right now. She's a neighbor of mine, and she saw me peeling paint on my front stoop not too long ago, walked up my sidewalk, asked if I'd be interested, which I told her I absolutely am. So she directed me to submit an application. I observed my first meeting a couple weeks ago. Sarah was there as well. Didn't scare me away yet, so here I am.
Great. Sarah?
Yeah, historic homes has always been a hobby of mine since I was little. And I wanted to give back to the town. That's why I got into it to begin with. And does not have to do with my job. So it's a nice break and a good way for me to give back to our local.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Just to confirm, after you make an appointment as your next agenda topic, there will be 3 openings for full-time members and 3 openings for alternate members.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there's plenty of space on the committee currently.
Yeah, okay, well, I see no questions from the board. We appreciate you coming in and waiting us out for the warrant talk. Anything you want to say before we send you on your way?
No, I'm enthusiastic about being more involved in the new community, and it's a great place to start.
Great, thank you for your interest.
No, thank you for allowing me to continue to serve our community.
All right, we appreciate all you've done and will continue to do. Thank you very much. We'll vote on,
Thank you.
at
Have
our,
a good evening.
yeah, we'll vote at our next meeting. Okay, moving on to board and committee appointments.
All right, I will move to appoint Tiffany Pignataro to a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2027 on the audit committee.
Second.
Anything further? All those in favor?
And I move to appoint Sarah Morgan to a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2028 on the Historic District Commission.
Second.
Anything further? All those in favor? Great. All right, moving on to select board comments. Would anyone like to speak? Wow, I guess, go ahead.
I just wanted to acknowledge the police department. There was a recent attempted home break-in, and it was actually, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of the dog all of a sudden. Reuben, sorry. So Reuben, there's gonna be plenty of treats coming Reuben's way. Reuben successfully stopped the individual, and I wanted to thank the East Long Meadow Police for their participation in that apprehension. Also, I don't know if it was Josh last week, but congratulations to the golf team for winning the Western Mass Championship. Maybe you didn't say that, but.
No,
Yeah, and the last thing was I had attended the Close, Long Meadow Close, as well as the Long Meadow Police. They had set up a stand at the shops where they were handing out Narcan, and obviously that's something that touches, you know, many of our friends, our families, relatives. Everyone knows someone who's might be struggling with addiction. So I just want to thank the police and Long Meadow Close for their efforts and setting up a tent to hand out Narcan, and it's something that I now carry just as a precaution should someone be in danger. So thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Dan. Anybody else? No, okay, we'll move on to applications. First, we have a one-day liquor license application for One Way Brewing.
I move to approve One Way Brewing's 1-day liquor license application for October 26th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, and anything further on that? All those in favor?
And I'll move to approve Glen Meadows' 1-day liquor license application for November 17th, 2025.
Second.
Anything further? All those in favor?
Josh, just to clarify with that application, if their state-approved license comes back prior to
Oh,
that,
right.
then this one-day application will be void, but they're still in the process of waiting for that application to come forward.
It can take a while.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next up, we have street closure applications. This first one's from me. So
Wait, you have to recuse yourself?
I think I probably should.
Probably. So I'll move to approve the Farmington road closure application for October 31st, 2025.
I spelled street wrong, by the way.
Second. Yep.
Okay, all those, anything further? All those in favor? And I think I said abstain.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right, and I will move to approve Green Acres road closure application for October 31st, 2025.
Second.
Okay, anything further? I will note that this normally comes in, and my wife noticed that they hadn't, and that's why it came in today. We got
Good catch.
got the troops on it. And thank you for taking care of that so quickly, Mike. All right, all those in favor? Okay, presentations, guest speakers. Barry. It's probably, if you want to sit, it's probably more comfortable over there.
Peggy, can you pull up, Peggy, Barry's presentation? I think the one on the agenda you can use.
You got the agenda just to the right already. Okay. Go ahead.
First, thank you for inviting me to your meeting. I think I know most of you. My name is Barry Jarvis. I am the Director of Parks and Recreation. And initially, this was going to be a presentation that discussed the pricing structures within the department, but I took the opportunity to provide a little background and perhaps some strategic initiatives kind of woven in. So hopefully it's a relatively straightforward piece of information. If you look, and you probably had the chance to read through it, but I thought it would be beneficial to provide an overview of the department. I like to think this department's very unique from other departments in terms of our services being elective. So people don't necessarily have to utilize the Parks and Recreation Department for our programs and our services, our facilities and such, because most of what we provide are a very competitive nature. So we take a customer service approach that's very similar to most of our competitors. If you, and that kind of the first slide gives an overview of that. If you look at the town's website and you happen to see our page, the first thing that should pop up is our vision statement. And in the early 2000s, probably around 2003, we did a vision session with the, at the time, Park Board, because they were still elected, and the department, and we strategized what we wanted our vision to look like, what our mission wanted to look like, our goals and objectives. So if you went on the town's website, you'd see the vision, and it's passionate professionals, beautiful parks, and exceptional experiences. So we strive to, with every service and activity, an event that we provide, we strive to accomplish that. The next slide goes into the Recreation Revolving Fund, another unique feature of our department, not completely unique to the town, because there certainly are other departments that have revolving funds, but most of what we offer in terms of programs and services is directed through a revolving fund, the Recreation Revolving Fund. We do still receive general fund support, primarily for some of our staff, so 2.5 staff, myself, the administrative assistant, and half of the assistant director are funded through the general fund. And you're all familiar with the town budget, probably more than anyone. You notice that the daycare salaries do receive an appropriation from the general fund, but they are paid back twice a year, usually once in December, and then at the end of the fiscal year. I gave a history point, which I think is very interesting, that over the last 60 years, the general fund has really only seen an under $3,000 increase annually. So most of our enterprise is funded through revolving. So it's programs and services, it's revenues that we take in through primarily user fees. That's our main revenue piece, but also donations and some grants and things like that. And going to the next slide, I thought what I wanted to present was to capture all of the different components of the department. So we do a lot of programs and activities and services and events that many people are familiar with. We segment them all out for accounting purposes, for planning purposes, and for financial accountability. So you will see the different program areas that we use with our registration, with our accounting, and then the year-to-date. And I took FY '25 because that was the year that just finished, the revenues, the year-to-date revenues and expenses. And you can see where our cost centers are and where our profit centers are. So it's really no surprise that some of the main cost centers are the aquatics line item and also facilities and administration. It's worth noting that with the last one, which is field usage, when I'm reflecting the expenses just over $6,500, that's not any of the departmental expenses that the DPW incurs. So that's strictly what the Recreation Revolving Fund pays for. What comes out of that is the portable bathrooms in the parks, some ancillary supplies, and then in the other cost centers, you'll see aquatics, which I'll explain a little bit later in the presentation, and facility expenses, which primarily that is the Wolf Swamp maintenance contract. The next slide, I apologize. I tried to be creative with showing a different viewpoint of that, and when it was transferred, there were some spelling liberties that I didn't take but happened to transfer, unfortunately. But hopefully this shows where our different, our cost centers and our profit centers are. Traditionally, the after-school program, which we call extended day, and the day camps, and oftentimes the daycare are our profit centers. We are not truly making a profit because if you look back, or if I refer back to one of the other slides, some of our staff are funded through the Recreation Revolving Fund. So the 50% of the assistant director's salary and 50% of her benefits, as well as portions of both custodians for this building, are funded through revolving. So it's not true to say that we have, if we go back to the other slide, the $82,000 profit for extended day really isn't a true profit, because there are expenses that come out of that are not, they're not reflected there, but they do come out of that. So an interesting question that always comes up is how we price our programs. So I think it's two slides, yes.
One more.
My team and I really take an approach of cost recovery pricing. So we don't price our programs to make a profit in any circumstance. We really try to cover our costs, which is true to form with a revolving fund. There's different municipalities that we benchmark in this area as well as in the Commonwealth and nationally that take similar approaches. It's not uncommon for recreation departments to have revolving funds, and increasingly you see it more and more, especially in this area. So we never, as I said, we don't price to make a profit. We try to cover our direct cost. Where it becomes a challenge, oftentimes it's pretty easy to identify our direct costs, especially when pricing a program. So we know we have our instructors, whether they are in staff, sometimes they're vendors, and any facility rentals that we may incur. We don't have a lot of facility options within the configuration of the Parks and Recreation Department. We often rely on school facilities. That does come with a rental fee as well as custodian fees. Any supplies, if there's insurance, uniforms, things like that, those are pretty easy to identify. What becomes a little more difficult are the indirect costs. So, I do need my glasses for this. If there's changing administrative overhead, for example, if there are utilities costs, we do pay the water bill for the pools that we program and manage and operate, and we receive all the income for those pools. So in turn, we pay
the water usage for that. And then sometimes there are capital costs that we aren't able to completely fund within the recreation revolving fund, but we do contribute to. Almost every year, we have community preservation requests that we make, and we often try to, if we can't match the funds that are essential, we try to contribute to offset. So we usually don't ask for the full cost of any capital project that we have. Next would be determining the pricing goals. So as I said, most of the programs that we price, we adopt a cost recovery model. Sometimes we do use a subsidization model. We do have a very small scholarship fund that we utilize. It's in honor of our park board chair, Brian Trelease, who was the park board chair for, I believe, maybe 16 out of the 21 years that he was on the park board. It's 100% supported through donations, and it's typically a small account. There's usually under $2,000, but it does help us grant program subsidies, pool pass subsidies for people in need, and we base that on the federal poverty guidelines. We have adopted some pricing strategies. We do offer non-residents, we do charge non-residents more with some of our programs to offer and incentivize residents within our programs. We always look for any ancillary sources that we can find at the Wolf Swamp Fields, for example. Many of you have probably seen the concession stand. It's not a big money maker, it's more of a service feature. Sometimes we have merchandise. If you look on our website, we do have a small online store with Longmeadow gear, mugs and aprons and sweatshirts and things like that. We do sometimes rent equipment when we have the opportunity to. We do have a donation program through the Trelease Scholarship Fund. We do look for sponsorships when it's appropriate within the confines of what's allowed within the town. And oftentimes there's grant opportunities. As a town, not specific to the department, but the Land and Water Conservation grant that we received for the Bliss Park Playground is an example of that. And we receive almost regularly, annually, a small but important grant for our field hockey program through the Youth Chevy Sports Program. So that's always something that helps subsidize and offset some of the increasing costs for some of our programs. So topic of interest, especially this summer, and certainly as we move forward in planning next summer, which we've already begun to do, is our aquatic facilities. You've spent a lot of energy, I watch your meetings and meet with Lynn frequently, and understand the capital that's been invested in both of our swimming pools. And one of the charges I feel my department has is how can we make those pools more attractive to residents, get more people involved in swim lessons, and to do that, because of the expenses that we incur, have to charge user fees. We have different degrees of that. We have our season pass, which is the most economical for people. It's one fee, and it's both pools, and it's all summer. We have daily fees that we do charge non-residents a little bit more, and we always have a $5 after 5 fee. We have our daily rates that we did decide, we made the decision to attempt to increase, or actually to decrease, and offset our deficit with the aquatic program. And that caused discourse within the community, so we are looking at that and will be looking at our fees. We've done benchmark studies with what our communities charge. I did add some of the benchmark information because I think it's interesting and it's important to understand that when we look at our different surrounding communities, it's not always apples to apples. For example, in the town of Agawam, there is a very large subset of the general fund. So they receive a lot of general fund support, and their revolving fund only pays for their their pool staff. In East Longmeadow, it's probably the most similar in our general area that is comparable to Longmeadow. They also have a general fund. They use that for staff and equipment, and they utilize their day camp revenue to subsidize their pool loss, which is an interesting model that I don't use that reporting mechanism, but we could certainly do that if we wanted to reflect that way. West Springfield is a combination. We've also looked at different communities outside of this area. So we've looked at Simsbury, Connecticut. That seems to be a model that we are kind of doing more of a deep dive with because their population is similar, the amenities are similar, and some of the changes that we're looking to make for the 2026 season, we're looking at Simsbury as one of our benchmark communities. With our programs, most of our programs, we do end of season or end of program surveys. And this is just a snapshot of one of the many questions that we asked our season pass pool holders. So to put it in perspective, we had almost 600 pool pass holders. 21 people responded as of the time that I took this screenshot. And we asked them questions such as, what kind of pass do you have? What did you like about the pool? Did you find it clean? Giving us feedback on staff, amenities, and things like that. So the next series of slides, we asked them about pricing. So it's interesting that my perception was that we had a great deal of discourse with pricing over the summer, yet 57% said they felt that it was just about right. So we will be looking at our pricing structures, continuing to benchmark different communities, and looking to see, we run budget simulators often, so seeing how we can make changes that make sense financially for the department, but are also appealing to our residents and our families that we serve. And I think the last slide so that's just a summary of some of the narrative with the suggestions. So people talked about the pricing, talked about wanting different options for vulnerable populations that are limited on income, such as seniors, perhaps veteran incentives. They gave us feedback about the opening of the pools and the closing, and we've already begun to explore ways that we can try to extend the season. Perhaps it's opening earlier than we usually do, perhaps it's staying later. We did, if you noticed, we did try to do that because the last few years it's been very warm into September, and of course this September it really wasn't, and as soon as the pool water gets cold, it's very difficult to warm it back up unless it's very hot. So we are exploring a variety of different options as far as hours and those type of logistics. And then those are just some more facets of the the survey. We asked them about our hours, and we asked them about the quality of the swim instructors and the lifeguards, which are usually the same people, the cleanliness of the facilities, the benefits, the exercise, and some of the feedback we received had to do around additional programming, perhaps adult fitness programming such as water Zumba, water aerobics, those type of things that we're exploring for next summer. I included a piece on sport associations because they are a large part of our department. Certainly without them, we can't offer most of the youth sports that we offer in town. They don't quite fit financially into the revolving fund. Most sports in our town are run through independent associations. Many of them are 501c3 or working toward that exemption status. And I thought it would be important to define how they fit into the department. We treat the sport associations as sponsored, meaning they have their own board of directors, they have their own financial mechanisms, their own registration systems. The only sport that we run as a town department is, well, actually there's a few, but field hockey is the current sport. Cross country is a program. Track is a widely popular program with over 200 children in it. We run field hockey ourselves, but traditional sports, most of the others are run independent of the town. We've produced within the department a set of sport association standards that have different pillars in terms of equal play, fairness, based on national standards, playing time, those type of things that all of these associations agree to, that they will adhere to, and in exchange they are sponsored. One of the
benefits to the sport associations is that they are able to utilize town facilities, whether they're fields or the swimming pool, or the basketball courts within the school. And the department, the Parks and Recreation Department, acts as kind of a conduit to secure those permits, make sure the fields are lined and ready and prepared for all of the usage that they receive, which is quite a bit. We know that our youth sports are very popular in our community. In 2008, and actually a little bit prior to that, there's annually directives given from the select board and the town manager for our budgets. And right around 2008, the directive was initiated to try to diversify our revenue mix. We understood that the general fund couldn't always be relied on for some of these non-essential but quality of life services. So we began to implement the signage banner policy, which you see at some of the fields in town, at Turner Park, at Bliss Park, and at Wolf Swamp Park, that was intended to bring in revenue. We also implemented a user fee. It was started in 2008, and it was $3 per player per season, with the understanding that it was going to increase in increments after 2021. So the original messaging to the sport associations was in spring of 2022, it would go up to $10 per player. It would increase, it would stay the same for the summer, but then increase in the fall. We never implemented the $20 per player fee based on feedback from the associations, based on their feedback that they gave the department and the Park and Rec Commission, that they had many of their own costs that they tried to cover. They also helped the town in their own ways with preparing the fields and supplying some things to help facilitate their fields. So when we landed at the $15 fee, we stayed at the $15 fee, and that's currently what they pay per person, per player, per season. What that covers, and that's often a question that we get, is all of the Sandy cans that you see in the parks. We don't have bathrooms in most of the parks, and the ones that we do, we have to have staff open and close them. So really only the high school stadium and Wolf Swamp, and sometimes Storrs Park, which has Stropel and DePippo fields, has bathrooms. Otherwise, we have portable units that we put out usually the end of March, and we collect usually the middle to end of November. Those are quite pricey. Those are about $5,000 a year. Some of the maintenance cost, as I mentioned, the Wolf Swamp maintenance contract is a little over $130,000 that's paid through the Recreation Revolving Fund. So some of the user fees offset that fee. Some irrigation work, sprinkler heads, sometimes field paint. Sometimes there's one-time either maintenance or grounds expenses that perhaps would be deemed capital expenses that we have the opportunity to fund within Recreation Revolving, that we do utilize those funds for, as long as they directly benefit the sports that are paying into that. That's the justification. I referenced the banner program. In 2023, we launched the program. Not necessarily as successful as we had hoped, despite some pretty aggressive marketing. We direct marketed and contacted all residents who owned a business in town, as well as many of the vendors that do business with our town, and so far only 13 to date. We also, on some occasion, rent athletic fields to private entities. You've approved some of those, the lacrosse. There's a lacrosse rental that's currently happening on Sunday mornings at Wolf Swamp Fields, and the two jamborees. Those private companies pay fees to the town. Those funds are collected by Parks and Recreation, but they are deposited into a general fund account. So they're not utilized by Parks and Recreation. We're just the conduit for collecting. And then just reiterating what our department goals are, because we have the privilege of having a recreation fund. We take it very seriously, and it's a responsibility to make sure that we run that as essentially a business account, an enterprise account. So we don't have a large allocation from the general fund. So we have to raise the money in order to spend the money. We do our best to balance what the priorities of the community are with what the priorities and the abilities are within the department. We try to do that and be very accountable. And when we're seeking new program ideas, sometimes they come from residents, sometimes they come from one of our administrative division heads, perhaps seeing a new trend in recreation. Pickleball's a really easy one to point to because everyone knows that that is the fastest growing sport currently. So there's also new trends in adult fitness. We also try to look at some of our program areas where we know we have holes, such as teen programs. Teens are really tricky to program for, so we're always looking for programs for teens and preteens, vulnerable populations, special needs adults, those type of things. So we're always on the lookout for new program ideas. That might be it.
All right. Thank you, Barry. I thought that was very is well done and a good explanation of where the money goes and where it doesn't, from our general fund at least. The revolving fund is we talked about one a lot today, but it's clearly a good avenue for the Parks and Rec department rather than having to come with your handout every year to the town. You can self-fund, which is great. I had some questions. One, I remember when you brought in the sign policy, and I was very excited about it. I wanted to do it. And as someone who had my own business, I no longer do, but when I had my own business, it was just overwhelming to me to say, I got to design this thing and then order it. And I wonder if even just making it a little easier, like teaming up with a printer that will do it, like, I don't know, Go Graphics or something. I don't know if you already do that, but if you could say, oh, well, we have it set up, if you just tell them your idea, they can make it work. Because I knew how to do everything, I could have, but it seemed so overwhelming to me. So that's just an idea for that, because I think it's great that they are there. I wish we could have them all along the fence, especially at Wolf Swamp. I think it would be great. So that's just my idea on that. And then I'm glad we have this slide up. Well, actually, you know what? Andrew talked to me about this a lot today. Why don't you ask your cool questions?
I had, so I'll start with this. So Dan and I went to one of the talks this summer with Lynn at one of the pools. And when we were there were very few swimmers. And it was a sunny day. And Dan had said something that I won't forget. He said, like, when I was young, this was the happening place to be. Like, this was, like, very, very popular. And so there were far more lifeguards than there were swimmers. I actually know one of the lifeguards who works there, and they were just telling me how there were multiple days where there were no swimmers. So I was, when Dan and I were chatting, we were just saying, like, why aren't there more people here? Is it because it's too expensive? I think personally we should be willing to run this program, the pools, at a loss just to get the community together. I didn't know it was because there were too many, like, more people had built swimming pools in town. And then I saw this slide, and I saw we're losing, like, this doesn't even include the millions of dollars we've spent on, like, renovating the pools. $132,000 losses in the aquatic program. And I thought about how few people, and then I emailed Lynn, and I assume that you helped. I found out today that the number of swimmers per day on average at Greenwood was 55 a day, but at Bliss was only 12. And it made me think, to be honest, that we would be remiss in our fiduciary responsibility if we didn't ask you to dig a little deeper into the usage at Bliss. Because I'm thinking, how do we make, first of all, you didn't add up these columns on the right, but actually it's a significant loss, right? So the revenues add up to like 250,000, but the losses add up to like 370,000. So it's like we're down like well over $100,000. And I just think that it's worth looking into the cost of running both pools. I mean, I think when I think about how can we reduce the cost of the passes, well, to be honest, I just did a back of the envelope math here. If it costs $188,000 to run the 2 pools, half of it for one of the pools, it's $94,000. 12 swimmers for 2.5 months. It basically comes out to over $100 we're spending per swimmer for Bliss Pool. I'm sure you've thought about this, so I hope you'll share some thoughts. But I think that I would suggest you kind of get some metrics together. We have plenty of time to think about next summer, but I don't think we should, I think we should look at the numbers, because if it's really obvious that this is not worth, and also you or Lynn mentioned in the future Bliss Pool could need $2.5 million more in like upgrades, including like a chemical storage shed for $500,000 and $200 million more in lining stuff. And I'm just thinking, we just need to use common sense. It is just I thought about this for 2 days after like looking at this and getting your email today, and I think that it's definitely something we should look into. What do you?
I'd
what
love
do you
to
think?
share.
Please.
So, one thing that's not reflected, because, bless you, all of the revenues and expenses are by compartment. So something that's not perhaps obvious is the day camps use Greenwood
Okay.
Pool for swim lessons and 2 swims a day. So if there were some type of accounting, which I'm happy to do, and this has come up before, to allocate some of that day camp revenue back fairly to aquatics, that would potentially lessen the deficit with aquatics, and I think that's fair to do. I think one of the things you mentioned, we all certainly reminisce about that pool. Even, I've been here 31 years, and even back 31 years ago, the pools were heavily used, and one thing that I've paid attention to and I've reported is the increased number of backyard pools. So many people have their own pool. I don't believe that's a deterrent. I think it's really a great opportunity to look at some of the, and you'll see this with a CPC request that we're developing, some of the amenities with the pool. I think it's time to make the pools more attractive to people, even if they have backyard pools. So I think it's a combination. I think it could be attributing some of the day camp revenue back to the pools. I think it is perhaps making the pools more appealing, both financially and not complete subsidy, but perhaps looking at the daily rates, which went up significantly, and we kind of decided that we wanted to do that based on the deficit. That didn't really work because it didn't bring in more revenue, it just brought less people. So perhaps lowering the daily rates and possibly the seasonal rates. So the daily rates, more significant reduction, but the season pass, perhaps a more subtle to get people. I think there's many families that do the math at the dinner table and they say, we're only going to be home for 5 weeks in the season. We're gonna go 15 times. Does it make sense for our family? And perhaps it doesn't with the current fee structure. I'd love that opportunity this summer to see if we can bolster those numbers. One of the things that we used to do that we don't do anymore is the full day sport camp model. And that's primarily because of the vendors. It was a consequence of COVID, but it stuck because all of the vendors, meaning the lacrosse camp, the soccer camp and such, they ran a traditional 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. day, and they swam at Bliss Pool at the end of the day. The vendors now choose to do half-day sessions, and that has, I think, had a negative impact because the people that were picking up their camper didn't bring the rest of the family and swim until dinner time. So I think there's opportunities to do a historical look back to see what used to work, implement some of those. The survey resulted in some interesting things where people did reference past practice. One of the things we used to do was adult swim, and some of you, Dan, probably remembers if you went to the pool, the break, the 15-minute break, where the adults, the kids, we get them out of the pool, and that was adult time every quarter of the hour to the hour, and that was appealing to adults. So perhaps some or all or more of these initiatives, I think it's much better to have perhaps lower fees, but a lot more people in the pool, because I think it's a better visual. We have the lifeguards. We're paying for the lifeguards no matter if there's one person or our capacity, 200 people. So I'm very eager for the opportunity to make some of these changes. Programming, if we did water Zumba, that could bring in probably not a large audience, but definitely different people that may not have even have thought that they wanted to go to the pool.
So, to me, the problem with when Bliss came, or when Reynolds Pool came back, I remember I was very ambivalent about it, because it was money that we maybe could have used elsewhere. And I said, well, the town will do what the town wants to do. People are very passionate about it, and then they just are not showing up. And it's a shame. I would wager people who spoke at town meeting in favor are not going and haven't bought a pass. To me, we're not competing against home pools as much as, I'm at the field club. We have 2 country clubs in town. That's what people would choose to do, I think. And especially if it's not much more. The field club's very inexpensive. But the reason we switched is because we used to go to Bliss Pool, because I live close by, and we couldn't go in the kiddie pool. No, we couldn't go in the big pool because we had swim diapers maybe at the time. But also, it was just a pool. It's just, there was nothing on the side. There's no chairs. You bring your own chairs, but that's a pain when you have kids. And I know that this would just be more money, but it's not fun to go sit on concrete. And I understand that's also things you have to replace. It's things that break. It's more maintenance. But maybe we do that at one pool. What I don't want is to see us fall prey to the sunk cost fallacy where we spend money on Bliss. Maybe we shouldn't have, but we did. If we throw more money after it, that's a real tough sell to me. For a very small subset of people may think they want it, but they're not going. And Greenwood is, with the splash pad and the camps nearby, to me, it's just a much more logical place to throw our efforts. But
Thank you for pulling this together. I think this was really helpful to see, and I absolutely love your mission. As a parent of 2 children who did use the daycare and the extended care, I think you did a fantastic job with it.
Thank you.
I think I had similar questions as to Andrew and Josh. I think it would be helpful to come back with some quantitative data, maybe over the past 5 years, as around usage, cost, benefit analysis. I think that could help us kind of have that conversation with you to say, hey, what does make sense? If you were in here earlier, I'm not sure if you were listening, we have a lot of priorities to balance in the coming years, and I think it would help like residents to understand where we're coming from if we could see some of that data that I know you have.
Yes.
And then also, I know some people responded to the results, but 21 people, right, out of like approximately 600 pass holders. It would be great to get more information from them as well. I think that could help us.
or for people who didn't buy a pass.
Yeah, exactly. Like what
Why
was
didn't you
that?
buy a pass?
So I'm wondering if there's some creative ways for us to get you some help even creating some of those surveys or reaching out and getting public feedback and or creating some of the quantifiable kind of data points that would probably help us to have that conversation. But I think you did a fantastic job putting this together, and I appreciate you taking the time walking us through it. And I know we're focusing on the aquatics, but there are clearly a lot of other programs that are kind of self-sustaining for you. So I think what we're honing in on is the ones that are probably problematic. And then I have one technical question. Administration, what is that exactly? Is that staffing, or what does that actually mean?
It is in the presentation, that's 50% of the assistant director.
Got it, okay. That's what I thought, but I wasn't quite sure.
And
Okay.
50% of her benefits, and also ancillary things. So sometimes if there's training opportunities, sometimes
Okay.
we will allocate that. If not grant-based, we would defer back to them.
Okay.
And the survey's still open, so if anyone's watching and bought a pool pass,
We'd love to.
they can. And we can certainly explore doing something similar and having it up online. These surveys are fairly easy to generate,
Mhm.
and I think they're really beneficial.
I have another non-pool question. So a lot of the fields I spend time at with my kids they're doing great, and I appreciate all the work that DPW and Parks and Rec has done on it. The only field that I fields that I've really noticed that could use a lot of help that don't get it are the two Bliss baseball fields, baseball and softball field, which need a ton of work, right? They need, like, start fresh,
They do.
essentially. Which would be under DPW's purview. Is there, let's say we didn't have another pool, or there are user fees that could be used towards that, is there a mechanism for you to have funds go to DPW for fields? Or is it in the revolving fund, that's it?
So the revolving fund's interesting because it's money in, money out, so if it's not a compartment, and even the categories that I created a compartment for, they don't all have funding sources. Some of them are they're just expense categories. Prior to this meeting, and which is why I was a little bit late, was the Park and Rec Commission meeting that was down the hall, and we invite the sport associations on an annual basis, and the two that were there tonight were the aquatic program and Little League. And when they provided their report, it was very interesting to many of the people in the room that all of they disperse from age 4, I believe, to high school, but their highest concentration are the younger children, and the most of their divisions play at Bliss, which was interesting to learn from a programming perspective, because I don't program the sport associations, we work in partnership, but we tend to focus on the larger fields, but the most kids play at Bliss.
Mhm.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah, I think if there's something we could do on that, that would be a priority to me, because, yeah, that's a kid's first time on a field. And the side by the woods is a little bit better than the side by the street that is terrible.
Yep.
That really, and if that's the first you're walking on, like, and it's kind of it's not a great experience. But a lot of our sports associations do it. They all do a fantastic job.
They do.
And I'm glad you work with them. I'm glad I know there's a good relationship, and maybe you all butt heads down in the meeting. I didn't hear anything when I was walking by, but yeah. So that's just things to keep in mind. I think that this has been very helpful to me to think about where your funds are going and things that, and you're focused on a lot of the same things that we are. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. We do have the active recreation assessment that we conducted a couple years ago that does point back to the field conditions and prioritization, and I believe Bliss is near the top of that list.
I know
So
we
that
got-
was acknowledged.
It was one of the things that grant we didn't get. for
Yep.
the-
And it is the grant that we didn't get for that phase 2. That would have taken a deeper look at that.
That would have been a big project, but hopefully that'll come back up at some point. Anything else from the rest of the board while we have Barry?
I just wanted to make one comment. So what Andrew was talking about in terms of the pools, definitely when I was a kid, for sure, riding my bike, there was a lot more people than I saw over the summer when we were sitting there. But I think I said this a couple of years ago. Once we start, we have to think of everything. All options have to be on the table. But if we were to close a pool or close pools, they're never coming back. I mean, that's just the reality. So we have to understand that we are going to operate with a loss. I hate to say it, but I think what we need to drive towards is having pools that actually people want to go to, that we're opening our pools on time. This is not your fault, by the way, but I think we need to make pools more accessible. We need to actually invest in the pools the proper way to drive attendance, and I think that also comes to marketing efforts as well with surrounding communities, because it's not just people from Long Meadow that can use our pools, other people can too. So I don't know exactly, maybe it's a question, what are we doing with folks at Glen Meadow to drive them to our pools? What are we doing with the sports associations to drive attendance? The camps you mentioned, that was something, we always went to the pool at lunch and then went back to Russell Field. So I don't know if we're not doing all of that, but I just think that we need to make sure we're doing our best to drive and market the usage of the pools, because like I said, these are gems, and once we close one pool, we're gonna close another pool, and that's it. And they're never coming back, and people are gonna be forced to join a country club that's expensive, or they're fortunate enough to have their parents have a pool in their backyard, and that's leaving a lot of people out from, you know, growing up with a pool that's down your street in both ends of town. So we're gonna have a wider discussion, but it's just, I felt like I had to call that piece out, because I do think it's important that we have these in our community. The other point that Josh made on, totally agree on the field. So this is something that I feel like unfortunately it falls to the Parks and Rec, but folks at home should understand that this is a DPW issue that is controlled, that is in charge of our fields and maintenance. And so I'm very active in sports and have been, and I coach, and people complain to me all the time about how poor our fields are. And it ends up being many cases a result of your department, when that's not really the case. So I think people ought to know that as we look forward, we really need to start focusing on field maintenance. And you're doing everything you can. I believe in your budget, it's very tight. But to Josh's point, I just think that we really, especially with the new school coming, we're gonna have less field space. And this field space that we're stuck with is poor field conditions. So something that I hope that the board, you know, as we talked about earlier with DPW and some of these funds that are potentially freeing up for projects, would be to allocate more funding towards our fields. So anyways, I know it's getting late, I just wanted to make those comments. So.
We are publicly accountable for the fields. I fully acknowledge that. So I think we work pretty closely with DPW. I know that there's, in the capital plan embedded, there's lots of different concepts for lots of different fields. But we certainly have challenges coming up, not just with the pools, but with the fields and the middle school. And we've already begun to plan. So we work collaboratively with the high school and the athletic director and his department in sharing fields. We also have been approached by East Long Meadow. I'm sure you know that they're renovating. They don't have a baseball field for the spring, so we have an upcoming discussion, hopefully conversations with them. We're going to need reciprocation when Williams goes offline for different fields, so we'll see.
All right, nothing else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We
Thank you.
appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Good job.
You can't leave yet.
I won't leave, I just need to stay.
All right, any comments before we move on correspondence? Okay. Let's go to town manager's report.
Okay, thank you. There is, as we talked about earlier tonight, there is a public information session on the proposed updated floodplain bylaw. The Associate Planner and Conservation Agent / Tree Warden will hold this public info session on Wednesday, the 22nd at 6 o'clock here at Greenwood Center. There's also a Zoom option, and this has been posted on the town website and the bulletin board. You can ask questions and they want to get input on the proposed update. And this will go on the November 4th fall special town meeting warrant, which was just closed earlier tonight. Long Meadow Street paving project, a contract was signed between the town and Palmer Paving in the amount of $921,000. This is going to complete drainage improvements and resurface Long Meadow Street from Crescent Road to the Connecticut border. And Converse Street paving between Route 5 and Laurel Street started last week. This paving is for the restoration of the trenches that were done for both gas and water work that was recently completed. And I'm really pleased to announce that the town treasurer collector Erica Brunell was recently appointed the Massachusetts Collectors and Treasurers Association Legislative Committee for a term to expire in December of 2026 with an option for renewal. The committee meets throughout the year to create a legislative agenda to be presented to the legislature to sponsor and support items related to management of public funds and municipal finance. So big congratulations to Erica for this statewide seat that she's going to be on. And that wraps up my report for tonight.
All right, thank you. Vineet?
The Commerce Street paving, that was paving that was done by Eversource, right?
Correct.
And not the town?
Correct, yes, yep.
Do we have an update on the sidewalk work that was being sent out to bid in the beginning of the fall?
I don't, but I will get one.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything on the reports? Okay, thank you, Lynn. And congratulations to Erica, that's a nice honor. Good for the town. All right, moving on to old business.
On hold?
Sorry?
That's works, design?
Oh, yeah, no meetings tonight. MassWorks Grant Design, Bliss, Williams, and Redfern.
Okay, so you had a large presentation at your last meeting. Some of the takeaway from that was that there was a desire for more public input. And so we talked about the special town meeting option, but that really pushed us too far into November in terms of gathering input and having them there at that meeting. Plus, knowing that the warrant was only going to be 19 articles, we did not think that the turnout would be that great. So we didn't want to put a lot of effort into that and the expense of having the engineers there. So what we did do was schedule a public information session on October 29th at 7 o'clock. It's going to be here in this room and also virtual. It will start with a presentation by the Fuss and O'Neill engineers and then open up to Q&A. We do think this should be from 7 to 8. I think that's plenty of time to capture that. And then what we would do is take those comments and then bring back to the November 3rd Select Board meeting a recommendation from staff on what, based on that feedback, based on the Fuss and O'Neill, and then based on our internal discussions, what approach we think should be taken, and then we can discuss it with you. But it's kind of what we expected to move forward with to wrap up, so that we don't lose time and can make sure that we're ready for the next grant round.
And so that's kind of as far as we can push it time-wise, right?
Yeah,
November.
I mean, if we brought this back to you in the second meeting in November, it only gives them like 2 weeks, and
Okay.
that's not enough time.
Gotcha.
Lynn, is it possible to have the session on the 29th recorded?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Could I ask, I made this point to Mike when I came to look at the plans, and Mike was here, we had a conversation last week, and after the traffic study came out, and the traffic study was quite optimistic regarding like the traffic flows, that capacity that we have, but one thing that it didn't have was anything about the middle school, the new middle school, how traffic patterns would change and increase volume. I'm still quite optimistic it would be fine, but I just asked Mike to make sure that at this presentation, I'm sure that question will come up. Let's revise the traffic study so that the new middle school is accounted for. And I assume that there were other traffic studies that had been done, as you mentioned, that did do that. So just make sure that's added to the presentation.
That's a good one.
There's another current one that just concluded as
Right.
well that.
So we have a lot of data.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think this is exactly what I thought was appropriate. Just another opportunity for the public to chime in and to hear about this and provide thoughts. So thank you for bringing this together.
Yeah, thank you.
It's gonna be a major change to the town,
Yep.
for the better.
Yep.
But we want people to feel like, feel part of it and understand what's gonna happen, so, great
Absolutely.
idea. Thank you, Len. Okay, anybody else? All right, moving on to the energy and sustainability stretch code update. Shelley?
So I and Paul attended the last meeting where we talked with the NS committee, and what they've decided to do is not ask for it to be put on the warrant. That's why we didn't see it there tonight. But what they are gonna focus on is having more conversations with the community, with local contractors, helping to educate us on what this stretch code actually means, what the impact is, and how it could help the community. Some of what they're looking to do and what we discussed to do is try to put out a mailer to the residents. They did ask the board if there's any way we can help them with that cost, with them not really having a budget. I said that I would talk with all of us and talk with Lynn to see what the options are there. But they're gonna focus now primarily on educating the public and having community conversations to get the information out there. Paul did say he would help them engage with local contractors who do often work in town to get them to a meeting, to ask questions and learn more about it, and to get some feedback from them as well. So currently, they're focusing on that rather than putting it on the warrant at this point and risk it getting voted down and kind of losing the traction that they've had so far. So they're looking for other opportunities to engage with residents and get the word out.
So a mailer, I thought was kind of the eye-popping figure of $6,000,
Yeah.
which is not nothing. But Lynn suggested to put it in with the census, potentially?
Yep, that's an option. There'll be, depending on what is in there already, it could have some increased postage costs, but I don't know that we generally do a lot of inserts in our census here, so we could find that out, and the timing would line up.
They were also wondering if it was okay if they had a flyer made up at the town meeting that's coming up in November, if folks from the committee handed the flyers out with information on it to people coming into the town meeting. They wanted to make sure that wasn't gonna violate any type of bylaws.
It's usually okay, but they need to check with the town moderator.
I think they were gonna email Rebecca, I'll just follow up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say also, the building department also put a link on their permit link page, or the portal that gets you to permit link, just with a disclaimer about the stretch code, giving people the opportunity to make comments and who to email for that. So
Good.
they've already gone ahead and started that process, which is good.
And typically for this kind of thing, we do a water bill insert. Would that
Do
not
that too.
work? Okay.
Yep.
And we could do a quarter sheet for that as well, so it's a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, cheaper.
So-
Okay.
I mean, we do have this revolving fund. Energy efficiency.
This is energy related.
Yeah, it is energy related.
All
Okay.
right. Okay,
I
thank you,
will
Shelley.
take that back to the committee, and I'm sure Andrea and the team will be circling back. Great, thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. All right, last up, we have select board and town manager goals. It's 9:42, so I put this on because I want this to come back, but at least quarterly, so we can discuss it, because I feel like we have great discussions on it once a year, but I would like us to talk about it more. And that, I also thought the agenda looked a little too short. And, so, sorry. Well, I've only been, it's only my third time being chair, so.
Josh, if I may, I will also say that recently, at a recent planning board meeting, we gave them an update on the long-range plan. It's amazing to see how that plan impacts our goals and vice versa. So if you would like, before the next time we bring this back, we'll update this spreadsheet based on some of the goals that are identified in the long-range plan that the select board is kind of overarchingly assigned to. So we can do that as well.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be helpful. And so if we just look through this, since we do have it, it is on the agenda, a lot of the things are in progress, which I think is really a testament to how Lynn, Mike, and Peggy are on it, and the rest of the town, so I definitely appreciate that. As Mike said, the long-range plan is being assessed. We have the, coming up fairly soon, we did the townwide facilities assessment. Lynn, could you just tell us where we are on that?
Yeah, so the actual facilities themselves, that report has wrapped up. We are waiting on the staff and budget structure that was being done in tandem with it. They had some delay in community responses that they were comparing us to. That is almost done. So as soon as I have the final, then it will come to you guys for a presentation.
I think that I'm looking forward to that,
Yeah.
because we have facilities that are not being used and have a lot of potential. My neighbor is, I can't remember the name of the historic building tax credit guy, and sorry, Greg, I know I butchered that, but he keeps sending me ideas, so I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So center school roof window replacement underway. We talked about demolition of DPW today. The ADA transition plan, we're looking at that. We're in fiscal year now.
Yeah.
Are we, that's coming up, it's been about since 2017 on that.
Yeah, so the plan itself, we don't have any plans right now to refresh that plan, but I can say that we have a lot of projects that were called out in that plan that are in progress. So like the Bliss Playground, all the elementary school playgrounds, the Bliss Pool, there's ADA improvements there. Moving our
Town
facility
offices.
here was huge. So there's a lot of stuff that's happened. We should be looking at a refreshed transition plan.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Vineet, you wanna just give us an update on fiber?
Sure, yeah. So Fiber Spring has completed their design and engineering, and so they will come and present to the select board, and then we can go from there. They'll present, different construction options, different financing options, and go from there.
Great. Net zero by 2050. So we have the solar panel plans. At some point, we'll talk about that. Is there anything going on with that one?
Yeah, this is a topic that's gonna probably take a lot more of our energy in the next couple years, because there's a lot of movement with the stretch code conversation, but also the energy and sustainability is working on climate leader certification, and that is something we're going to have some conversations about, because there are impacts that are pretty substantial, that if we're trying to meet climate leader certification, we need to decide if that's what we want to do. And then there's a lot of stuff that has to happen to put us on that path.
Okay, thank you. We have to check inventory on all the remaining non-LED streetlights.
Yeah. This is it's something that should get done. It's just not a high priority.
Okay.
Maybe at the next TRAG meeting, I can discuss this one.
Yeah.
Municipal aggregation, we are aware of.
So Lynn, those last two things, technically, we could, that revolving fund we discussed tonight earlier with
Yes.
energy,
Yep.
we could leverage some of that money to help us with
Yep.
some of those projects.
Both of them, yep.
Yep.
Municipal aggregation's done.
Yep. And then the EV chargers, that actually, I parked an EV charger yesterday in my hybrid, but it doesn't count.
So I had a meeting with Eversource and Universal Electric 2 weeks ago. There is a potential fix, a software fix that will allow us to bring the NLX chargers back online without having to swap out all the hardware. Because NLX went out of business or bankrupt, and so all the chargers are offline. We're exploring whether or not that is possible and what the cost would be.
But doesn't that just get us back to where we were before?
Yes, and so
Yeah.
that was why I met with Eversource, because Universal was insisting that there was a better rate for us. And I said, come to the meeting, and they did, and there is no better rate. We have what is the rate.
So Shelley, the chargers that, like at Wolf Swamp or elsewhere around town are, I don't know, like 4 times what anyone else charges? Because we can't, so we don't have a good rate. Is it still a possibility that we get somebody else to come in?
That's what I would like to do.
All right.
So that was what this is. This is this goal was of release an RFP.
I've spent,
Yeah.
too much
Yeah.
brain power on this. Okay, so things are happening.
It's sort of, I mean, the federal incentives are not there anymore, so it's not as lucrative for someone to come in, but, yeah, it's
Okay.
still there on the list.
All right, active recreation areas. It's a low priority. Oh, this was the, Bliss Park and Cooley Brook.
Yep.
I'm sorry, high priority.
Yeah, this is still ongoing.
Okay.
Yep.
And then
Same
the
with the
Bliss
Bliss
Pool
Pool.
upgrade, so
Yep.
we talked about that today. Passive recreation, then Cooley Brook, so this is still back to what we talked about.
Yep.
On DEI, Chili Salazar reached out to me and asked about, she was asking if there was 2 DEI committees, and I think she was talking about the internal town group, which, is that still ongoing?
It's kind of an as needed, and lately it has been focused between myself and Mike and HR. We did that professional development day,
Right.
and that was a huge success. And now we are actually spinning that off into another like customer service related one. So that has a lot of renewed interest now.
And the other thing that she asked is if there's any onboarding for elected officials or volunteers, like any training. And I said that not that I was aware of, but I thought that would be a great thing for DI to come back to us with.
Yep, that'd be great.
Okay, and then safety efforts for departments. So this was added by the town.
Yep. We still do this. We have a safety committee meeting every quarter with our Maya rep, and we continue to, work on that, go to trainings. All of our attendance at annual meeting at MMA, that qualifies us for points. Any of the trainings you see come across your emails from Maya, those all get us reward points that we use towards this grant, this safety grant.
Okay. Good. On the Hampton County Retirement Board, do we know what is happening with the legislation?
I haven't had an update in a while.
Okay, we should.
Since the last time I gave testimony.
Yeah, we should check in on that. Then the charter bylaw and policy review changes.
So we took off all the ones related to recall. I know that this isn't specifically speaking to that, but it's the most current related to it. We took those off after talking with town council. It needs more review, and he needs to have some discussions with the Attorney General's office. And then we do have, I've been back and forth with the Form of Government Committee Chair, which is a Mass Municipal Managers Association committee that goes out to cities and towns to talk about the different forms of government. And I'm scheduled to meet with him on Wednesday to hear about when they can come and what the presentation looks like to you all. And so I think that will help guide some of what our future work is in this area.
Okay. Great. And then just down on the bottom, we don't have them fully on there. I just want to touch on the Glenbrook Middle School plan. I think now that we know the school is happening, we should explore how we want that to be discussed, because that is a massive opportunity for the town and could be really transformative. So we want to make sure we think about that carefully and have a lot of input. And then on the last one, the select board policies, Mike, this would probably be something that, I know we've talked about it, but it's been a while. A lot of our policies say like review annually, biannually, as we have this one on our desk. Triannually, I don't even know how to say it. Triannually. Yeah. So we should do that and look at them, and some of them, because it's just like with the select board policy on the agenda, we weren't really following. And we should look at them, and maybe the Water Enterprise Fund we update to say it can be used for road paving, because it is a good.
I'm glad you brought that one up. So Ian has begun looking into some of the finance related items, and I began looking into some of the non-finance related items so that we can coordinate and come back with just a review. But I think you're right. Absolutely, we should bring them back on an ongoing basis to review.
Not that we need to fill up our agenda, as I've learned today.
But there are some that are in conflict with actual bylaws.
Correct. Yeah. And so there's any number of reasons to look at it, to educate ourselves, but also to see if we need to update. So yeah. All right.
Does the town facilities study and what comes after that, is that actually even on here?
Yeah.
I always think of it as way up at the top and there.
Oh, okay, so it falls under
the second overall one.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and the DPW related items like public shade tree management, pavement management, that came out of our strategic session that we had last September. We'll have to formally add those into this when we go in there and make all the updates. So we'll just figure out where to put them in the categories.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to add to our goals?
I brought it up earlier. I just think fields is something that I don't know if what the group feels as well, but I just feel like that's where
again, I get a lot of feedback that our fields are in dire need of repair. And I, just walking into tonight's meeting, I could hear the Parks and Rec meeting with another group about the fields in poor condition, so I think that's something that I personally would like to see, and I hear a lot of feedback from residents, and I'm not sure if that's something, I don't wanna speak for the rest of the board, but if that's something that others would be interested in addressing as well.
That's one of the most tactile way people interact with our town, so. yeah.
Yeah, and I think with Glenbrook, that priority for that needs to be moved up, because I think that's gonna take a while, and we should give ourselves time to do that. And I know that there are a couple of pieces to that where the school department has to give the land back over to the town, that has to happen. And then I think what we had been talking about was having some type of committee or something citizen-led to lead that process. And I wanna make sure that we're giving, you know, enough time for that to happen. I would love to get that started, you know, as soon as we can.
Yeah, all right. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I like this room.